10 years have passed since Lin came into this world, and finally this day has come. The world he found himself in combines reality and game elements, and from the very beginning he dreamed of awakening the combat class. He was confident that he would achieve his goal and become the strongest man in this world. While Lin was thinking, his friend Wang came up to him and said that it was his turn to recognize his class. He was so lost in thought that he didn't even notice that his class teacher had been staring at him for a minute. Yan, the name of the class teacher, told Lin to stop violating discipline, even on the day of awakening. Lin ran up the stairs as fast as he could and told Wang that he would return to him as a true king. Once he got to the top, he was told to stand inside the formation and not resist its power. Lin had high hopes. The awakening of a class is largely related to the talent of the person, but the will of the person being awakened also influences it. Lin began to awaken his class. A huge and powerful pillar of light rose up around him. No one doubted his talent, but everyone was also curious about what powerful class he would receive. Suddenly, Wang noticed that something strange was happening and asked his class teacher. She told him that Lin had awakened a hidden class. Only they could cause the strongest reaction, and they were also incredibly rare. This meant that Lin was destined to become one of the strongest warriors in their world. But everything turned out the other way around. Lin became the sacrificial warrior. He received a support class. He couldn't believe that he had received a support class. He had worked hard since he came to this world, and the teacher felt very sorry for Lin. Wang asked the teacher why he spoke as if Lin had failed, when he had tried harder than anyone else and everyone knew it. The teacher explained that altars are a real anomaly among classes. People of such classes are able to strengthen others, but the path of improvement is very difficult. The hidden class will need to absorb the source of power that only appears within the heavenly tribulation at the initial stages, but even powerful warriors do not dare to enter it. Throughout history, no one who owned the altar class could get past level 10, and this class is considered the most useless. Yang tried to support Lin, because despite his class, he is a secret one, and this is already a great rarity. On his way home, Lin looked at his stats. All of his indicators were higher than the average person. He looked at the skills and realized that he was a real support, a regular support who would reach a maximum of level 10. However, suddenly a message came that after a long absence, the owner had entered the system, and the 10,000 times amplification system was activated. It can amplify everything related to the owner 10,000 times once, without any restrictions. Suddenly Wang ran up to Lin and said that he had been running after him the whole time. He told him that the main entrance exam would be in 7 days, and they should make the most of this time to become stronger. Suddenly someone's very nasty and loud laughter came from behind, and it seemed they both knew who it was. The purple-haired boy said that with the class that Lin awakened, he had no chance of getting into anything. This guy's name was Gao. He was always picking on Wang and Lin. He awakened the thief class, but because of this, he thought he was much better than others. Gao approached Lin and said that people like him, born into poverty, would forever remain pathetic trash and achieve nothing. Lin pretended not to listen to him and asked him to be a good dog and get out of the way. Zhao got furious and started calling Lin a pathetic piece of trash again, and then got punched in the face before he could react. Lin was deeply hurt by his words and told him that they could settle everything right now and find out who the real trash was. However, Gao refused. He said that in a couple of days he would reach the 10th level, or even higher, and Lin would remain a loser. As he left, Gao told Lin to just wait, and he would definitely come for him to take revenge. Wang told Lin that he had a strong feeling that he would definitely become a great man. But Lin replied that he was exaggerating and went home. He stood in front of the house and thought for a long time before going in, because he was a little scared. He didn't know how to tell his parents that he had become a sacrifice. He was afraid that they would be angry. But most of all, he was worried that he had not lived up to their expectations and had greatly upset them. When he entered the house, he smelled a very delicious aroma. His parents asked to leave work early to have time to set the table. Lin immediately went to try it, but his mother sent him to wash his hands. Father began to say that Lin had grown up and offered him a drink. Just at that moment, Lin began to talk about his class. But as it turned out, the class teacher had already told the parents everything, and they were not at all upset. Instead of worrying, they decided to drink to a bright future. Lin promised them that he would not give up because of such a trifle, and would continue to try. After dinner, Lin offered to help his mother, but she said she would do everything herself. Suddenly Lin saw a black box, and immediately asked what was in it. As it turned out, it was his gift. It was a family treasure that had been passed down from generation to generation for over 100 years. For generations, their family had been incredibly wealthy. This was gold-level equipment. On the market, such a set would cost no less than $1 million. Lin immediately asked the system to increase the characteristics of his equipment by 10,000 times. Now his equipment was legendary level. Plus, he would be able to deal double damage with earth and lightning magic. Since ancient times, magicians have fought with the help of long-range spells. Lin decided that from now on, everyone would call him a master of long-range spells. Once he reaches the 10th level, he will have to enter the heavenly tribulation, and to move to another realm, he must absorb the source of natural disasters. The coast of the country of Highs is literally teeming with monsters, and dark thunderstorms constantly gather over the ocean, which often cause natural disasters. The next day he decided to go there using teleportation. He confirmed his identity and went in search of natural disasters. Immediately, he saw a sign that said that this place could be very dangerous for those who had not reached the Second Kingdom. And they were right. As soon as Lin turned around, a huge lizard was already attacking him. Lin easily repelled all of her attacks with a protective spell that formed a dome around him. The spell was used on its own when Lin's life was in danger. His equipment fully justified its legendary level. However, you can't win with defense alone, and it's time to strike the first blow. Due to using the dome for a long time, Lin began to have a severe headache after all. He was a newbie. Suddenly a warning came that the shield protects against magical and physical attacks, but it does not work on long-range mental attacks. Then Lin raised his staff and began to chant a spell. He used a forbidden spell and its power was incredibly enormous. A man approached the minister and said that the level of magical vibrations had reached its maximum. They thought they were under attack, but the enemy could not have launched a surprise attack because the city's coastline was protected. The minister asked to open the surveillance screen for him so that he could assess the situation. The minister said to quickly contact the leadership and ask if there are any among the entire population who can use forbidden magic. The minister asked to put the entire city on alert. They must quickly determine the direction of the magical energy and wait for further instructions. At this time, a very strong wind arose at sea, and a real storm began. The townspeople were informed that the city had been declared on the highest level of alert, and everyone had to leave their homes and evacuate to shelters. The city was in turmoil, water began to flood houses, and people in panic could not reach shelter. At this time, a protective dome was activated, which held back the pressure of water. Lin had already finished killing monsters at this time, and had reached level 10. He purchased a skill book. The system immediately offered him to improve it. And of course, he agreed. Now he could destroy enemies and buff allies without resorting to casting spells. Now he just had to get to the center of the natural disaster. Because of the volcanic eruption, all the local monsters turned into coals, and there was no need to worry about them. After some time of searching, he was able to find the element of fire, and immediately improved it with the help of the system. After this, he went to sea in search of the element of wind. Finding it was a little more difficult, but Lin also managed to do it pretty quickly. In addition to the 2 elemental elements, he also received a huge amount of equipment and materials, and if he sold at least some of it, he could get a tidy sum. Now that he's finished, he needs to go home. However, when he came out of the portal, he saw crowds of running people and did not understand what was happening. The girl next to him told Lin that the teleporter was temporarily out of order and he would not be able to return home. Lin was a little confused by this, but the girl told him to go to the central shelter. Lin realized that it was all his fault. He had been careless with the forbidden spell and therefore had to fix it himself. Despite the fact that the girl was calling him, he didn't even turn around in her direction. The people on the wall continued to hold the activated protection, but it was becoming more and more difficult for them. The equipment showed that the barrier was at the limit of its capabilities, and there were 5 minutes left before impact with the water. The minister ordered to convey his order to the chief to summon the strongest soldiers of the 30th level. They have to cope. If the wall is destroyed, the whole city will come to an end. Suddenly they noticed that cracks began to appear in the wall. A little more and it would be destroyed. The minister ordered all soldiers to deploy a protective barrier. They need to push the waves back. The people holding the barrier were trying their best, and it was getting more and more difficult with each passing second. At this time, Lin managed to use his magic, which belonged to the altar class. The people's bodies quickly recovered, and they were able to continue holding the activated barrier. It seems that now they are starting to get something going and are managing to retain the water. The minister said to continue to hold the barrier, and those who still had strength to use teleportation and throw this wave further into the sea. Portal with unspecified teleportation location successfully activated, sea level lowered. Finally, it was all over. People were happy that they had managed to protect the city. However, Lin understood that all this was thanks to him and was proud of it. But it was also very dangerous. The power of the forbidden spells was too great. Now we need to use them more carefully so that something like this does not happen again. Suddenly his mother called him to find out if everything was okay. He lied to her, saying that he was now in a shelter and everything was okay with him. The next day he went to the upgrade hall to fill out paperwork. To be promoted, you had to complete a task. The difficulty level was determined randomly. The girl thought that Lin was just another visitor who wanted to catch some easy task, because he had an altar class. However, Lin is given the most difficult task. The girl immediately suggested that he refuse, but Lin accepted the task. She continued to persuade him, since tasks of such difficulty were a death sentence for those with a support class. But Lin insisted on his own. Suddenly, 3 guys approached Lin to offer their help in completing the task, because it was a good chance to increase his level. But to their surprise, Lin refused, which made them very angry. One of them tried to hit Lin, but he quickly calmed him down. He couldn't believe that an ordinary support class person could fight back against him. He did not take revenge on him because he was scared, but he decided that he would do it not directly, but dirty. Lin came to the Merchant Guild branch to sell some equipment. The girl could not have expected that Lin would bring them a whole mountain of valuable things. For a full assessment, they had to wait for the manager. He was a master of treasure assessment. His name was Liu. He told Lin that he had never met anyone who could bring so many treasures and offered 23 million for everything. Then Lin gave him some more equipment, which was obviously more expensive, but it would take some time to evaluate it. Mr. Liu finished the appraisal. These 2 items were part of some kind of set. If Lin wanted to sell them, he could offer 140 million. Liu gave Lin a black card from the Merchant Guild, with which he can enter any branch and be served at the highest level. After that, Lin said that he would like to buy a couple of skill books from them. He then went to the information center inside the dungeon, where he was given information about the dungeon with the Abyss Herald. Previously, the dungeons were full of monsters, but now people roam freely. At this time, that same guy was following him. But Lin immediately sensed him, but decided to ignore him. If you believe the map, this is where the Messenger of the Abyss should appear. As soon as he entered there, he immediately saw a huge monster. He was so ugly that it gave Lin goosebumps. Lin didn't hesitate, and immediately used a not very strong spell, and it seemed to him that the monster was already killed. However, suddenly the monster struck him with a blow that Lin did not have time to dodge. He was surprised that in just one blow, he had taken away 1,800 health points from him. But now he was even more surprised when he saw that guy. They found out that Lin now had a lot of money and decided to rob him. However, Lin was surprised by the fact that they apparently had no instinct for self-preservation at all. The guys started telling him to stop acting like a big shot, but at that moment the monster attacked him. But he was a warrior of the Second Kingdom, and people like Lin can be taken down in no time. Besides, if they kill him here, no one will know about it and no one will look for him. But suddenly his own friends started attacking him. He couldn't understand what was happening. He decided that they did not like their lot and said that they could discuss everything calmly. He had already promised to give them half, but they did not stop. Suddenly he realized that Lin had done all this and thought that he had paid them money. But he called him an idiot because he still didn't understand that now they were completely in his power. The guy couldn't believe it because Lin was just a level 10 support. Lin said that not all support class heroes were weaklings, although that didn't matter anymore. There was real chaos in the dungeon, after which Lin began to leave, leaving the guy in the dungeon. Right at the exit, he saw that the dungeon began to collapse, apparently because of his forbidden spell. The Ministry of Magic Control is in turmoil again. The minister was informed that a powerful energy wave had arisen inside the dungeon, and now the dungeon could collapse at any moment. The minister thought that the top brass might have been involved, because first there was a tsunami, now there is a dungeon. The guy asked the minister what they should do, but to be honest, he didn't know himself, so he decided to call the mayor of their city. The minister reported that they had an emergency situation and the city's underground could collapse at any moment. He also said that the students had recently awakened, which meant that there were a lot of people inside the dungeon now. The mayor did not hesitate and immediately assembled a rescue team and sent them underground. There was chaos in the dungeon. Everything was falling apart very quickly, and there were a lot of people. Lin was scared because if someone died because of him, he would never forgive himself. However, he had a skill that could completely heal people in any condition while they were still alive. The rescue team, together with the minister, arrived quickly, because every second is someone's life. The minister blamed the top brass for everything, and said that as soon as he found out what they were doing there, he would publicly speak out against them. The next day, Lin came to the upgrade hall, approached the girl. He said that they could start, but she replied that she was not ready here. Lin said that he just came to upgrade his class. No need for any ambiguous phrases. The girl was shocked that Lin had rejected her beauty, but she was even more surprised that he had completed the task. Everyone on the street saw that Lin had completed the mission for the Messenger of the Abyss, and could not understand how he had managed it. Lin said he was just lucky that other masters came to his aid. After this, they began to envy him, and wanted them to also come across such kind masters. Lin was glad that everyone believed him. He hurried the girl so that they would raise his class faster. He was sure that the difference between first and second grade was like heaven and earth. He received a new spell. It was perfect for defense and retreat, and decided to take on a more serious task next time. When he went outside, he saw that everyone was running somewhere. As it turned out, the minister decided that there was some incredibly strong creature near the city. Lin was surprised, because he had only just risen to the second kingdom, and the minister had already started looking for some creature. According to the news, the minister reported that the dungeon will be closed from tomorrow due to recent events. It was also forbidden to leave the city for safety reasons, which Lin didn't like the most, because he couldn't get materials. If he can't get outside the city, he won't see any materials or equipment. Lin came to manager Liu again to buy magic scrolls. He also decided to ask Liu a question, who immediately said that their information was reliable and he didn't have to worry. Lin wanted to know if he could be provided with information about the sources of natural disasters. Liu hesitated a little, but then said that information about sources was quite expensive. Lin then offered him 3 epic-level items in exchange for information about the sources. Liu said that Lin was very generous. There would be an auction soon. One of the lots would be information about the sources of natural disasters. Lin said that this information is not worth epic gear, because soon everyone will know about it. Liu said that he understood everything, and under no circumstances could he let his guest go empty-handed. They brought him an entrance to a silver copy of the legendary portal of the Holy Land, an incredibly rare item. Lin was very surprised, because you can't buy such a thing everywhere even for a lot of money. After Lin left, the girl said that this item was too expensive to exchange for epic-level items, but Liu said that he did not regret anything, because he was sure that Lin was not an ordinary person, and very soon they would see the most powerful person of the altar. The silver copy of the portal could accommodate one more person, but Lin didn't know who to take with him. But it seems the candidate found himself, Van called him. He said that he wanted to help Lin with pumping, but the city was closed, so he had nothing to do. When Lin said that he had an entrance to the silver replica of the Holy Land portal, Wang almost choked. He tried to find out which rich family had taken Lin under their wing, because one could not save up for such a treasure in a lifetime. Lin told him to stop shouting and just give an answer whether he would go with him or not, and Wang of course agreed. Lin saw Wang, who told him that he hoped to see him with a rich woman who provided for him. But Lin didn't even have time to answer because a group of guys approached them. They started laughing at Lin and said that he would never be able to afford a silver copy of the portal in his life. They told Van to take a bottle of alcohol with him, so that when they found his body, they could at least drink to the repose of his soul. Wang told Lin to let him go so he could deal with these idiots. But Lin told them to watch their language, because they were warriors of the Second Kingdom. But they didn't care. Suddenly they saw Gao, and Lin asked why he was hiding. He replied that he simply decided to observe their ridiculous provocations. Gao started saying that Lin never raised his level and that Wang needed to find another team because they wouldn't achieve anything with Lin. Wang again asked to be released so that he could beat all the put-on stench out of Gao. Lin was pleased that Wang was standing up for him, but he wanted to sort things out himself. One of Gao's team got angry because Lin didn't respect them at all and rushed at him. However, with one light movement of his hand, Lin knocked the sword out of his hands, which left the guy very confused. While he was trying to understand what had just happened, Lin threw him into the crowd with all his might. No one could believe that an ordinary support class person was so strong. After this, Lin told Gao that it was now his turn, but Gao told him not to come over. But Lin didn't care, so he was able to immobilize Gao and tie him to the rock without much effort. Before leaving, Wang said that Gao should hang and think about his behavior. Everyone around him considered him a loser, because he lost to a support mage, being a warrior. It was very humiliating. After that, Wang and Lin entered the portal and found themselves on an ancient battlefield. It didn't look all that impressive. Lin said that the monsters here were different from the ones he encountered in the beginner dungeon, so he shouldn't relax. But it seems the monsters found them themselves. Hands appeared from the ground and grabbed Van. He told Lin not to worry. His class is a card master. Monsters won't even be able to get close to him. Van decided to use magic and show what the card master was capable of. It looked impressive, but Lin was much faster. Wang started saying that this was not normal. How could Lin deal with them with his bare hands? Lin said that he was simply born with some divine power. And if he weren't afraid of being noticed by the authorities, he would have quickly dealt with it using forbidden magic. Suddenly, Wang felt superfluous and useless. He knew that Lin could handle it alone. But Lin put his hand on his shoulder and said that he would take the monsters from behind and leave the rest to him. Van began to cast a spell. The card master was quite strong and also a rare class. So far, everything was going smoothly, but something was bothering Lin the whole time. And as it turned out, it was not in vain that, having moved to the other side, a huge minotaur came out at them. He was the hidden boss of this level. Lin told Wang to be careful, as he was quite a dangerous opponent. But Wang was not worried at all. While Wang was trying to come up with some kind of plan, Lin had already approached the boss to deal the first blow. But instead he started holding it and told Van to attack. But as soon as Wang tried to cast a spell, the battle ended in one blow. Wang was amazed at how Lin with the support class defeated the hidden one-on-one without even using magic. Zhao couldn't believe that they had done it so quickly, and even defeated the hidden boss. Lin and Wang went to the entrance exam. There were a lot of people, because almost all the great masters studied in this academy. Suddenly they heard a very unpleasant voice from behind and immediately realized that it was Gao. He said that this time Lin would not be able to use his tricks, and everyone would see how insignificant he was. Van decided to be sarcastic and ask him what it was like to be tied to a stone. Gao got angry and started shouting that he had been careless then. But now he had reached the second realm and there was no mercy to be expected from him. Wang understood that although he would not be able to cope with the warrior of the Second Kingdom, Lin would simply crush him. Suddenly, they were interrupted by the ringing of a bell, which announced the beginning of the exam. The girl began to say that today they would have to demonstrate their full potential, and that they could use everything except prohibited drugs. Lin and Wang wished each other good luck in the exam and hoped that they would both perform well. The first match will be between Gao and Lin. They were asked to go to the platform to start. Gao began to say that Lin had violated the ban on the use of strength-enhancing drugs. However, the girl told him not to talk nonsense. She could sense it a mile away, and if he didn't want to fight, he could just leave. After that, he turned to Lin and told him to admit that he cheated, since a support hero would not be able to break the dungeon record and defeat the hidden boss. Gao offered him a bet that if Lin lost, he would confirm that he had used the drugs and also give up the academy. The same went for Gao himself. He had picked on Lin so many times that his patience ran out and he agreed to a bet. Gao said that Lin couldn't even imagine how much stronger he had become after reaching the second realm. Everyone in the crowd was amazed, as they couldn't even follow Gao's movements. Gao admitted that Lin was strong, but what good was his strength if he couldn't catch him? However, this even made Lin laugh. He had a skill that allowed him to see invisible creatures, but even without it, he could see everything perfectly. Gao rushed to the attack and said that he would make him pay for deceiving everyone. However, none of Gao's attacks reached Lin. He easily dodged each of them, but was in no hurry to deliver his own blow. This surprised the crowd even more, because the support hero was not inferior in speed to the warrior of the Second Kingdom. One of the observers noted that Lin had a strong body and incredible reflexes, but the altar class ruined everything. After a while, Gao was already exhausted. He could not understand why he never hit the target. Lin said that although he was considered fast, in his eyes he was still a slow turtle. Wang was very happy with this outcome. It was even somehow unusual to see Gao so depressed. Gao asked the girl to have Lin tested for illegal substances. However, she told him to calm down. She couldn't make such a mistake, and if Gao was already tired, then he could leave the platform. However, he suddenly said that he would never lose to a loser like Lin. He used his most powerful spell, and was confident that he would now definitely strike. Lin was about to use magic, but the girl told him not to rush with the magic. Gao was angry because the girl had interrupted them and prevented Gao from completing his signature move. But she answered him that without her intervention he would already be dead, and if he didn't like something, she could resume the fight. But Gao refused, and the girl announced that Lin was the winner. But suddenly Gao rushed at Lin again and said that he would never admit his defeat. But Lin met him with a strong blow, still without using magic. He didn't understand what Gao was trying to achieve. He had just been saved from death, and now he was asking for trouble again. The girl was surprised to see Lin's strength and asked if he really had a support class. Lin walked up to Gao and told him to get up, as the blow was not strong enough to make him lose consciousness. When Gao was carried away by doctors, he continued to shout that he would definitely take revenge. But no one took his words seriously anymore. After that, Van and 3 others were called to the platform. If someone did not come out, then he would automatically be considered a loser. Lin was surprised because he thought that the fights would be one-on-one. But he wished Wang good luck. Taking to the platform, Wang said that now was the time to give it their all and show who was capable of what. The guy was surprised that there was a level 10 card master among them, and decided that he needed to get rid of him first. The pink-haired girl was a healer with a support class and she didn't care whose side she took. Hearing this, the guy decided that he needed to get rid of her first. Now she can no longer side with Van, so he suggested that another girl join him, and she agreed. This was to his advantage, because now he could easily get rid of her. Suddenly Van said that he would protect the pink-haired girl from him, because he had treated her very meanly. Suddenly another girl started to read a spell. She had a hypnotist class. Suddenly Van felt very tired and did not immediately understand what could be causing it. The guy came close, because close combat is the card master's weakness. But something went wrong and he was unable to strike, leaving him confused. Wong said that he knew too little about the card master class. These cards are capable of not only attacking, but also defending. One master noticed him. Van clearly had talent. He managed to cover his hand with a card and immediately counterattack. Another agreed with him and said that if he started practicing in their academy, he would grow up to be a very strong master. Now Van was ready to show what a true master of cards could do. Due to hypnosis, he couldn't concentrate and hit the target. But there was a solution to this. Van decided that since he couldn't aim, he would just start firing all over the platform to make sure he hit. The hypnotist girl flew out almost immediately, without offering any resistance. Now he was left alone with this guy, and understood that it would not be difficult for him to win. The guy decided that Van had already used up all his mana reserves, and he was even interested in how long Van would last. But he kept defending and defending, and it seemed like his mana never ran out. The pink-haired girl decided to help Van with her magic, and healed his hand. Wong said that he had already won, since few people could stand up to the 5-card formation. As he said, so it happened. After the healing, the guy did not last even 10 seconds. As expected, Wong left the platform as a winner. The girl approached Van and thanked him for his help, but warned him that after a while, he would be in a lot of pain. After that, Van fell. The thing is that the girl's magic absorbs all the damage, but after a while it returns in double form. Lin said that he thought Wong came here for the exam, but it turned out that he came looking for love. As he was leaving, he asked the girl to take good care of his friend, which made both Van and the girl very embarrassed. An hour later, the second round began, and Lin and 3 others were invited to the platform. They immediately said that they understood how strong Lin was, and asked him not to be offended by the fact that they decided to unite against him. Lin said that there could be no hard feelings and wished them luck. Then they decided to start, and immediately surrounded him from all sides. The girl had an archer class. She could create a bow and arrows out of nothing. Lin was very surprised by this, because this class was very rare. But it was not difficult for him to dodge her attack. However, when she fired and he tried to dodge, something happened that he did not expect. For some reason he couldn't move. As it turned out, the other guy was a master of shackles, so now he couldn't hide from the girl's attack. Afterwards, he also used a spell and set his own shackles on fire to damage Lin. But suddenly, as if nothing had happened, he emerges from the cloud of dust, completely freed from his shackles. Although they looked strong, in reality they broke very easily. But the arrows turned out to be quite powerful. It was even a little painful. But it didn't matter. Now it was Lin's turn to attack. But as soon as he started running, he ran into some wall. It turns out the third guy was a scribe, and could create formations on the ground that would trap opponents, but allow them to be attacked from the outside. The Master of Shackles decided to use a rather strong spell that created a long whip, and the girl concentrated all her power into one arrow. But suddenly they saw that with one blow Lin had damaged the formation. Despite this, the girl released her deadly arrow, and the guy used his most powerful move, the snake whip. But even this didn't frighten Lin. He easily destroyed the formation and stopped both attacks using only physical force. His opponents were good. They were lucky that they, having such rare classes, gathered together. For a moment he even thought that he might lose. But they knew they didn't have a single chance. They didn't even see Lin's skills. It was a complete failure, and they called him a monster. Lin said that there was no point in insulting a person just because they couldn't defeat him. And besides, the fight wasn't over yet. But they decided otherwise and simply surrendered, because they considered continuing the fight pointless. After that, they simply ran away. But Lin didn't care. He was interested in how Wong was doing. At this time, the girl continued to treat him. Lin was at first surprised that the healing took so long, but then he realized that these were new wounds. Wong said that he was put against some kind of monster. He didn't even have time to notice how this shadow approached him. And a moment later, he was already on the ground. Fortunately, Yun came to his aid. Lin laughed at how quickly their relationship was developing, already calling her simply Yun. But Wong asked not to change the topic. Everything was very serious. This Yuan is a very scary guy. The other examinees weren't even close to him. Lin told him not to worry and just rest when he had avenged him. In the remaining fights, Lin also easily won, using only physical strength. His next opponent was the same Yuan who defeated Wang. Yuan said that apparently there really were no worthy masters left here, since some altar boy had reached the final. Lin didn't like his tone, and he also immediately realized that Yuan was not from this city. After that, the duel began. Yuan was indeed a shadow, and Lin didn't even know how to defeat him. He realized that Yuan was trying to encircle him to gain an advantage, but Lin had very keen perception. Suddenly, a blade appeared from the shadows. It was so fast that Lin sensed the danger at the very last moment. Yuan said that Lin had good reflexes, but his attacks would only get faster, so he wouldn't last long. But it seemed that just at that moment, Lin began to understand everything. He landed one precise blow and hit exactly where Yuan was. During the first attack, Yuan only showed one hand, so Lin assumed that he was simply running around inside the fog and waiting for the right moment to attack from behind. Yuan admitted that Lin was strong since he was able to analyze his skill when he first encountered him. But that wasn't enough. But Lin asked if Yuan could withstand another blow. Yuan said that no matter how strong Lin's body was, he was just an ordinary sacrificial victim. After that, two shadows attacked him at once. At first, Lin thought it was just an afterimage, but he could feel their breath. When Lin was slightly distracted, Yuan struck him with one blow of his blades, cutting his shoulder. However, Lin said that it would be impossible to take it with numbers, and calmly caught these two shadows. Yuan didn't understand how an ordinary altar could track his movements. Although Yuan's ability to split was quite interesting, the difference between him and Lin was too great. After his victory, Lin told him to watch his language next time, otherwise he wouldn't get off so easily. Lin won and became the undisputed champion among newcomers. Lin was congratulated for becoming the city's strongest newcomer and was also given a small award. As a gift he received a villa. Next time it will be skill books or other bonuses. The rest were shocked by such a gift, because many of them would never earn enough to buy such a villa in their entire lives. The exam was officially closed. Now teachers from different academies will speak to them. Wang approached Lin to ask if he had chosen an academy. For example, he was invited to Ju's academy. It was not surprising, since Wang entered the top 8. But as it turned out, no one invited Lin. Wang couldn't believe it, because Lin was the best among the examinees. They basically talked about how he was going down the wrong path, that he needed to improve his skills and not just train his body. Well, actually, they were right, because Lin doesn't look like someone with a support class at all. His skills are somehow different. But Lin told him not to talk about things he didn't know, and besides, he didn't really need the academy. In the evening, Lin received a call from manager Liu, who said he had information about natural disasters. This natural disaster will be in the form of an earthquake, and will occur in a place called Yanyun. As soon as Lin heard this, he asked for the exact address to be sent to him, and he would go there immediately. Liu told him that natural disasters were no joke, and he would need some equipment to survive. But Lin said that he was completely satisfied with the equipment he already had, and as soon as he returned, he would sell everything he got inside. Liu didn't mind at all. Lin's items were always of the highest quality, and in his previous department he had made a fortune on them. Lin exudes an air of unpredictability, and the manager really liked that. Suddenly, Rick called him, which was very unexpected for Liu, because he never called just like that. He was very angry and immediately got down to business. He was interested in who sold Lin the pass to the silver copy. Liu said it was him, and there was nothing wrong with investing in a budding talent. Rick said that even if the guy had talent, that was no reason to give him such an expensive pass. Liu said he had been in the business for years and sensed Lin's potential beyond their imagination. Rick admitted that Liu's intuition had brought them great profits on more than one occasion, and he was very curious about who this Lin was. Lin went to the diamond forest, and it lived up to its name. On sunny days it really does shine like a diamond. Suddenly, screams were heard from the depths of the forest. Apparently someone had encountered a powerful monster. A few seconds later, a girl ran out of the forest, chased by a huge lizard. When she saw Lin, she told him to run away as quickly as possible, since he was a silver-ranked boss. Lin was surprised by this girl's bad luck, because it was very rare to meet a silver-rank boss in the Diamond Forest. The girl decided that Lin was frozen in fear and decided to divert the boss's attention to herself. Lin was hooked by the girl's kindness. A silver-level boss was chasing her, and she still worried about others. When the monster attacked her, Lin easily stopped the attack and said that she was mistaken, because it was a gold-ranked boss, and also asked how he would repay her for saving him. After this, Lin began to spin the monster, holding its tongue. The girl was amazed because Lin took out a gold-ranked boss with one blow and suggested that he create a team. But Lin said that he didn't even know her name, and he also had some plans right now. The girl immediately introduced herself. Her name was Du. She was the magician of 1,000 changes. This was also a rather rare class, and Lin decided that nothing would happen if he walked her to the exit of the forest. Du said that there was nothing special about her class, and asked Lin to introduce himself. Lin couldn't tell his real name, because he would soon take over the source of the natural disaster, so he said his name was Wang. Du said that he was incredibly strong since he was able to defeat the boss in one hit, and also suggested that they go for a walk once they returned to the city. Lin felt a little awkward. Du was very talkative and bombarded him with a ton of questions. Suddenly he asked her why she had even gone into the diamond forest. She replied that equipment was very expensive now, and she decided to try her luck to earn money. But now she is doing well because she has found a protector she can rely on. She was very trusting, but since Lin decided to save her, he would have to keep an eye on her. He told her that in a place like this you can't rely on luck, and he was right. A second later, a bloodthirsty gold-rank gorilla ran out at them. Lin told Du to stand behind him and not get into a fight. She didn't argue, because she understood that she had 0 chances. The boss launched a punch, but Lin easily stopped it. He was even surprised that a gold-rank boss was so weak. But a new problem arose. Du saw someone on the other side of the forest. It was a huge pack of demonic wolves with red eyes. They were even rarer in the diamond forest than gold-rank bosses. Du hugged Lin with both arms and thought that they would die now, surrounded by monsters. But Lin told her to stop screaming because he was able to handle them. He lifted the gorilla with one hand and threw it into the pack of wolves, killing them all at once. It was all very simple. Du became even more convinced that Lin possessed inhuman strength and was clearly hiding something from her. Du thanked him for saving her and asked if she could call him Big Brother. Lin didn't mind. However, he was troubled by the fact that something strange was happening in the diamond forest. He had never seen so many strong monsters here. It seems that the monsters also sensed the approach of a natural disaster, which is why they began to emerge from the diamond forest. The monsters would continue to come out until the earthquake started. He could have used the forbidden spell, but Du was in the way. Du was glad that she was now completely safe, but Lin told her that she would have to go back alone. He said that he felt the presence of a powerful person, from whom most likely the monsters began to emerge. Therefore he will wait for him, and at this time she will easily get out of the forest. She asked what would happen if she ran into the boss again, but Lin promised he would take care of it. After that, he picked Du up in his arms and threw him into the air with all his might towards the exit. Du landed on the rock, but there was not a scratch on her. Lin used his skill on her. He finally got rid of her. Now it was time to put his plan into action. He stood in front of the lake and began to chant a forbidden-level spell. Chaos Area was one of the strongest spells. Du looked up at the sky, where dozens of huge meteorites began to fly. She was very scared, because for the first time in her life she saw forbidden magic. At this time, the city had already reported a huge amount of mania released in the Diamond Forest. The man said to report this to Elder Tian as soon as possible. But he had already arrived. This information had reached him even earlier. The man said that perhaps 2 powerful masters were fighting in the Diamond Forest, and they urgently needed his help. He came here thinking it was an earthquake, but if things are as he said, then they need to address this urgently. First, it was necessary to find out their exact location, display a broadcast of their battle on the screen, and then prepare for capture. At this time, Lin finally found the source of the natural disaster. However, a moment later, I felt several very strong auras nearby. Looking at them with the skill, he realized that they apparently came here for him. If they managed to set up defensive formations, then he definitely won't escape. The last hope was a portable teleporter. They used instruments to try to find a person with a strong aura, but there was nothing on either side. After that, as soon as they noticed something on the radar, a teleport light flashed over them. Tien was shocked, because this portable teleportation formation was not something that ordinary people could wield, which meant they were dealing with a strong master. The next day, while Lin was brushing his teeth, he suddenly received a call from the manager. He told him that he heard on the news that a powerful master had appeared there after the earthquake. He was worried, and so he called. Lin pretended to be surprised, and said that he had not yet had time to go there, and also asked what happened to the source of the natural disaster. Liu told him not to worry. As soon as there was information, he would immediately inform him. Lin realized that Manager Liu was just testing him, and he didn't like it very much. But it didn't matter anymore, because now he had the source, and he would be able to reach the Third Kingdom. At this time, Liu was thinking that Lin was underestimating him too much, and no matter how he tried to hide it, he still wouldn't succeed. On the same day, Lin came to the upgrade hall. He said that he had collected all the materials again, and was ready to advance to the Third Kingdom. The girl was very surprised, because Lin had only come for a promotion 2 months ago, and now here she is again. He said he was just lucky to buy a disaster source, which is why he got it all done so quickly. Some in the crowd called him a monster, but others were happy because they would see with their own eyes the first altar of the Third Kingdom. Lin put his hand on the ball again to receive the task. Just like last time, he was given a task of the highest difficulty, but it didn't matter to him. He said that he accepted this assignment. The girl assigned it to Lin and said that the deadline was tomorrow. After this, Lin decided to visit Liu on another matter. He gave him a list of the equipment and materials he needed to complete the quest to upgrade his class. Liu was surprised and congratulated Lin on becoming the first altar of the Third Kingdom. Lin knew that Liu suspected him of something. so he had to come up with something to divert suspicion from himself. He said that his master had worked so hard to get him this source, so he couldn't let him down. Liu immediately thought that Lin was talking about the same master who was never found. He needed to do everything to improve relations with Lin and his master. Suddenly, Liu said that he had a very interesting artifact and invited Lin to look at it. He brought him a transformation mask. It allowed the owner to change his face at will. Liu said he could sell it to him as a regular customer for 4 million, but Lin tried to bargain down to 2 million. As a result of the negotiations, they managed to agree on a price of 3 million. Lin was very lucky. It wasn't such a big price for such a thing. Once outside, he immediately reinforced it with the system. Now, by putting on this mask, Lin could transform into a person he knew, and after the transformation, he would also gain that person's abilities. Now he could pretend to be his imaginary master as much as he wanted, and no one would guess that it was Lin. He immediately decided to try the mask and turned into Gao, and it really was indistinguishable from the real one. The next day, Gao met his friend, whom he had not seen for quite some time. He congratulated him on his admission to the prestigious academy and said that he simply had to buy him a drink. When Gao got drunk, Lin could easily transform into him and complete his task without attracting unnecessary attention. The friend asked the girl to take Gao to the best room and not to wake him up, because he wouldn't like it. At this time, Lin had already begun his transformation. Now no one will know for sure that Lin was in the Iron Forest, and he will be able to continue to hide his identity. When he went into the forest, he was met by a man who invited him to join them. Lin called him uncle, but this offended him greatly because he was only 27. He introduced himself to Lin. His name was Chen. He was a level 30 knight. After that, the rest of the team joined them, including the judge from the exam and Du. Also with Du came 2 guys who were investigating what happened in the Diamond Forest. Lin didn't understand why he was so unlucky to be on a team with 2 employees who were investigating a case about him. Now that everyone was gathered, it was time to head into the forest. Qian was glad to have come here. He really liked this forest, but he was confused by the fact that it was too quiet here. Qian said that they were in no danger, since he and the judge were both level 30. But suddenly a huge steel tiger emerged from the forest. Qian decided that the judge was afraid of him, but the matter was somewhat different. The tiger was not alone. A whole pack of them came, which meant that there was a leader somewhere nearby. Qian summoned a shield and said that he would protect the left flank, leaving them the right. But the judge stepped forward, saying that she would deal with them herself and leave the defense to him. As it turned out, it was easy for her. She dealt with the entire flock in an instant. Finally, the leader, the king of steel tigers, came out to them. Lin noticed that every encounter with Du ended with an attack from a gold-ranked boss. There was clearly something wrong with her luck. The monster was too strong, and Du said that it was time for them to escape from here. When everyone had fled, Lin decided that now was the time to transform into a master in order to finally divert suspicion from himself. Now he has become a mysterious old man who will save everyone. Qian didn't understand why they were so unlucky. As soon as they entered the forest, they immediately ran into a whole crowd of monsters along with the boss. But then things got even worse. A shadow wolf came out of the forest, who was also a gold rank boss. However, they were lucky, because the wolf came alone, so they dealt with him quite quickly. Qian told the judge that stealing someone else's loot was not good. While they were arguing, Lin looked at the wolf and really wanted to take his skin. It was very good. He went down to them and asked if he could take her for himself. Qian and the judge were very surprised to see the old man. He came so close to them, and they did not even feel his presence. Qian was not willing to give Lin his spoils and seemed to be preparing to fight. Lin said that the shadow wolf fur would be very useful to him, and he was very sorry that they were not willing to give it to him nicely. They considered him weak, so without thinking, they rushed into the attack. But Lin caught both of them and stuck their heads into the ground. After that, they allowed him to take the wolf and wished him a good journey. After this, Lin also ran into a pack of monkeys, but they did not pose any threat to him. But then the 3-eyed demonic gorilla, the lord of the forest, came out. Lin thought he could deal with her quickly, but the gorilla was quite fast and was able to dodge. Afterwards, she took the tree and started to spin it. Lin found it funny. The gorilla launched a strike, but Lin easily stopped it, and then he immediately dealt a blow that the gorilla could not survive. An ordinary gold rank boss is no match for him. When Du and his staff saw the gorilla's body, they were shocked, because it was a very strong monster. Lin managed to hide. He did not want to contact Du, because she only brought bad luck. The staff examined the gorilla and realized that it had been killed with one blow, with bare hands. Du immediately realized that this was very similar to the style of the guy from the Diamond Forest. Qian and the judge came out of the forest. They were glad to see Du and asked if they had seen Gao. She said she didn't see him and began to worry that he had fallen into the clutches of monsters. Lin was pleased that Du was worried about him, but it would be stupid to show up now. It would be better for him to go into the forest and complete his task. He didn't have to search for long going deep into the forest. He immediately met the Iron Forest Ranger, who was what he needed. This monster has good attacks and defense. To finish it off, you will have to break through all of its tentacles. Suddenly, the guard grabbed him, but Lin's tentacles alone could not stop him. Suddenly, the monster started screaming very creepily. It was strange. But then everything became clear. He summoned almost all the local creatures. Lin really liked this ability. Summoning other creatures was very powerful. He also felt that someone with a strong aura was approaching him. Perhaps it was Elder Tian. He had hoped to play with the monsters a little, but there was very little time. So he used the forbidden spell without hesitation and covered the forest with ice attacks. While Qian and the judge were trying to figure out what was going on, Du thought that it might be the master the boy had fought in the Diamond Forest. Tian asked them if it was true that some mysterious master had appeared here. The staff said they were sure there were 2 masters fighting there. Du said that Gao was with them, but they were never able to find him. At this time, Lin had already taken the guard's heart and completed the task. From a spare phone, he called the Merchants Guild to sell them the Guardian's heart. Liu asked how he was going to make the exchange, whether he would come himself or they would take him away. Lin said that he would leave the Guardian's heart in one of the tree trunks on the outer left side of the forest outside the city. The manager promised that they would do everything in the best possible way. Lin thought it all out. Then he would simply buy the heart from Liu. This should also at least divert suspicion a little. When Tian came to the forest, he saw many frozen monsters. But also among them all, he saw Gao frozen to a tree. He said he tried to get out of the forest, but somehow ended up even deeper. Then he was blinded by a strong light, and then he couldn't see anything. Tian didn't think he was being lied to. But as a second realm assassin who survived the forbidden spell, was he just lucky? When they came out to their team, they were very happy to see him alive. However, as soon as he said that they could now continue walking together, everyone had things to do. Xian said that he had a task to complete and left. The judge said nothing and just left. Tian told the staff that something about Gao had alerted him, and he asked one of them to follow him. He immediately realized that he was being followed, but he knew that they simply wouldn't be able to catch up with him. He suddenly accelerated and disappeared. The employee couldn't understand how it had slipped away so quickly right from under his nose. The next morning, Lin woke up in a good mood, but something was wrong. He used the all-seeing eye and noticed something interesting. 5 employees from the ministry apparently began to follow Gao, looking for Wang, but also suspect Lin. While he was brushing his teeth, the manager called him again. He said he had great news. Yesterday they acquired the Guardian's heart that Lin needed to raise the realm. Lin pretended to be surprised and said that he would arrive very soon. Having run out of the house, he didn't even notice that he was being followed. Having run to Liu, he asked again whether he really had a Guardian's heart. This question was also in order to divert all suspicions from himself. Liu said he wouldn't lie to him and offered to come inside to make the deal. At this time, those who were watching Lin were surprised that an ordinary schoolboy was on such a good relationship with Mr. Liu. Seeing the guard's heart, Lin said that Liu never ceased to amaze him. After that, he said that his master was pleased with their cooperation and asked to sell 2 items. Liu was very surprised. It was legendary level equipment. He asked who his master was to have such things. Lin said that these items were worth nothing to his master, but he could not reveal his identity. After that, Lin said that those who were following him were already quite annoying to him. Liu immediately understood everything. The guys from the ministry said that an ordinary schoolboy would not be able to get into Mr. Liu's office. However, Liu then came out and asked the guards to remove the violators and let the authorities deal with them. Lin went towards upgrading his class. It seems that now everyone will see the first altar of the Third Kingdom. When Lin arrived, the girl was very surprised that he had gotten the Guardian's heart so quickly. But he said he was just lucky it was on the market and now he can get a promotion. Suddenly, rays of light pierced Lin, as if they were burning his body from the inside. Now it became clear to him why there had never been third-class altars without a strong body. It was simply impossible to survive. But he was already eager to find out how much stronger he had become with his upgrade. It was revealed on the street that Lin had become the altar of the Third Kingdom. No one could believe it, and thought that the screen was broken. After all, this is the first time in history that the altar rises to the Third Kingdom. When Lin came out, all attention was naturally focused on him. He couldn't even imagine that it would cause such a stir among people. There was a huge line of people in front of Lin's house wanting to get his autograph or marry him. Lin did not like this downside of popularity at all. He told his parents that if anyone asked about him, he was not at home. As soon as Lin left the house, a crowd of fans immediately ran after him. He would never have thought that fighting off a crowd of fans was much more difficult than fighting off monsters. When Lin arrived at the auction room, he met Gao there. Gao said that even if Lin had become a little famous, it did not mean he could participate in the elite auction. But suddenly a girl came out and seeing Lin said that manager Lu was already waiting for him inside. Gao Lin passed by and said that he needed to hurry up. He didn't want to keep the manager waiting. Lu assured Lin that he would definitely not leave the auction empty-handed, and Lin asked him to get a certain cloak for him. Liu handed Lin a card. On it was the money from the sale of that equipment. The auction began. The first lot was a steel hand. It was capable of increasing stamina by 10%. Lin was surprised that someone started fighting for this hand. As Liu expected, the steel hand did not interest Lin. But if he did take a fancy to something, he would have to fight with those located in the VIP rooms. Liu said that there are 5 great families in their empire. Of course they have their own privileges, but at the auction, the rules are set by Liu, and they are the same for everyone. But Lin wasn't even worried. He would definitely buy what he liked. And finally, a very interesting item appeared in the auction, a pass to ruins number 3. These ruins are some of the largest in the world, and are only opened once every 30 years, requiring special fragments to enter. The starting price for the pass is 10 million. The minimum bid increase is 500,000. Lin really wanted to fight for this lot, and Liu noticed it right away. The 4th son of the Ma family also joined the auction and immediately named a price of 100 million. Liu said it was quite rare for them to fight over something like this. Lin wasn't going to give in to them just because of status. It was an auction after all, so he offered 150 million. He was not at all afraid of the 5 great families, so he constantly raised the price, reaching 200 million. Sign was very angry about this and said that he remembered Lin well. Lin won the auction. Liu said that the whole empire would probably find out about it tomorrow. But Lin didn't care. After all, the one who pays the most wins the auction. Liu said that Lin was very pleasant to deal with, and wanted him to bring 5 legendary items to the next sale. But that was too much, and they settled on 2. Liu was a little scared because he had gone too far. He couldn't be too brazen, otherwise he would anger the powerful Master Lin. Liu said that they were now going to auction the things he had brought earlier, and suggested that he go to the VIP room, because it would be very noisy here now. An hour later, a girl came running and said that his items were sold for 6 billion silver. Lin never expected such a sum. Even taking into account that the auction will take 20% commission, he can live in luxury for the rest of his life. Liu said that they would transfer the money to his card soon. But Lin was a little worried about insulting the Ma family, and now he had received so much money. But Liu told him not to worry, because the master of the merchant guild would be looking after him for 3 days. As he walked outside, he ran into the Ma family, who had been waiting for him for a long time, as expected. Lin said that they were great for waiting for him for so long, but he was not going to give them the pass to ruins number 3. Sin said that they had no intention of taking it away, but simply wanted to buy it for 300 million. Sister Sina said that they had no evil intentions, but were simply offering what they had in abundance. But even so, Lin said that he was not going to sell to anyone what he bought with his own money, and if they wanted to get it, then let them try to take it away. However, as soon as they moved, they were thrown back by a strong wave of air. A rather pretty girl came down to them. Her name was Fei. Apparently she was the master of the Merchants Guild. She said they apparently forgot about the 3-day auction rules. Sister Sina apologized for what happened and said that they were already leaving. Lin liked the way she assessed the situation and acted decisively. Lin said that since Fei had to protect him, she had to get rid of those who had been watching him for a long time. Fei said that her job is to protect, not to get rid of enemies, or he wants to hire her. Lin thought this was fair and asked how much it would cost to hire her. She named a price of 2 million, and he immediately gave it to her. It didn't take even a minute for Fei to deal with everyone. She also already checked the surrounding area and did not notice anyone suspicious. She said she could expand the search, but it would cost another million, which made Lin think she had no money at all. And he turned out to be right. She said that the materials for the promotion were very expensive, and also fashionable bags and dresses. Everything was expensive, but there was no money. Lin told her not to be upset, because he could hire her for a month as a bodyguard for 500 million. Fei's mood immediately lifted, and she said that from today on, she was entirely at his disposal. While Lin was sleeping, he was still under surveillance. But they could not notice anything suspicious. But they just kept watching because that was their order. Suddenly, one of them was taken by a terrible shadow. She said that this was the last warning, and if she noticed even one more spy, she would begin to act seriously. When they ran away, Fei came out of the shadows. Now they definitely won't interfere with Lin. When Lin woke up, he saw Fei in his bed and felt a little embarrassed. She said she dealt with a couple more spies during the night. Lin immediately realized that they were government men and hoped that he had not killed them. Fei said she was doing quite well at her job. and so suggested that they consider extending their partnership, but he suggested that she wait first. The next day, he went to meet Wang, and after that, they would go to the golden portal together. Wang was very glad to see him, and Lin immediately noticed that his friend was not wasting his time. But he said that he and Yun were just friends. But then Wang asked who the young lady was next to Lin. He said that this was his older cousin. He asked Fei to introduce herself. She introduced herself as the assassin of the third kingdom of Jian. Lin asked why she didn't say her name, but she said that she was very similar to her sister, so she sometimes used her identity. Indeed, Fei passed authentication without any problems. As Lin and Wang stood in line, Yuan, whom Lin had fought against in the final exam, approached them from behind. He said he didn't want to be in the squad with them and asked to switch, but no one cared. After that, they moved to a place that seemed very familiar to Van, and they were indeed there when they entered the replica of the silver portal. But just as he thought about it, a whole crowd of hidden bosses came out towards them. She didn't understand how the hidden boss suddenly became an ordinary monster, but now there was no time to think. Yuan immediately realized that he had no chance against them, so he decided to run away. Lin at this time had already begun to destroy the first Minotaurs. Fei told Wang that she was also capable of dealing with them, so as not to appear useless in front of Lin. However, Lin ran past her and asked her to take care of Wang and Yun. She shouted that there was an extra charge for this. Yuan was unable to escape, and the Minotaurs pinned him down on all sides. Lin watched all this and said that he would help him if he asked nicely. Yen replied that he would rather die than ask Lin for help. Lin told him to take his time and think things through. When he ran out of strength, he still asked Lin for help. If he had asked right away, the monsters would not have beaten him. But it seemed like everything was just beginning. A new crowd was already running from the other side. But Lin dealt with them just as easily. Yen felt a little sick, and Lin was surprised that he was so frail with the assassin class. Yen said that even like this, he would gain a lot of experience and be able to improve his class. But while they were talking, it seemed that things weren't going so smoothly for the others. Wang said that the monsters in the Golden Dungeon weren't that strong, but Fei did most of the work for them. Suddenly, the Minotaurs stopped and the earth split apart. A gold-rank boss, the Lord of the Minotaurs, emerged from the ground. Wang didn't understand how a Minotaur Lord appeared in a gold-rank dungeon. Fei knew he wasn't a danger to her, but the fact that she had to protect Wang and Yun made things more complicated. But then Lin and Yuan came to her aid. The boss didn't wait long and attacked first. Suddenly he disappeared somewhere and it was very dangerous. Suddenly he crawled out from under Van. Wang and Yun were lying next to each other, and at that time the Minotaur was running towards them. But Lin came to their aid and set up a barrier. Yuan picked them up and carried them away so that they wouldn't get in the way. Just as Lin was about to strike, the Minotaur hid underground. Fei said that she would deal with him herself after all. Lin paid her for it. It was useful for Lin to watch such an experienced master fight. As soon as the Minotaur struck, she quickly dodged and began to strike. In an instant, she completely cut up the boss. Lin was surprised that she had delivered more than 100 slashes in such a short time. Everything suddenly became quiet, and people began to worry a little about Lin. However, a circle appeared underneath them, which meant that the dungeon had been completed. Rick met Lin and said he could treat him to dinner, but Lin replied that the first gift was already enough for him. Rick had absolutely no idea what gift they were talking about. Then Lin said that in his dungeon they met the Lord of the Minotaurs. If they hadn't had a few tricks up their sleeves, they certainly wouldn't have gotten out alive. Rick was actually not involved in this and apologized. Lin said that they almost lost their lives, and a simple apology would not be enough, and Rick asked what they wanted. Lin said that it would be Wang who would decide, since he had received the most serious injuries. Van didn't want to blackmail Rick too much and asked for 2 gold-level equipment. Lin was a little surprised because Wang could easily ask for something more valuable. Rick agreed, and also added that he would give them 3 free passes that could be used 3 times. Wang thanked him and told him to deliver all of this to Lin's house. Rick apologized again for what happened and said that they would deliver everything tomorrow. Judging by Rick's behavior, he really wasn't involved. But then who did all this? At first, Lin thought of the Ma family, but that would be too open for them. Lin asked Fei what she thought about this. She said that changing the properties of the portal was not such a simple task, but most likely the Ma family was involved in it. Lin realized that they would not stop there, and asked Fei if she could deal with them. However, no matter how strong she was, their family leader was a level 76 master and would soon reach the divine stage. Lin was a little disappointed, because Fei had just recently boasted about her strength, but she replied that it was something completely different. But on the other hand, the head was too old to get into such trouble. Lin asked if there were many divine stage masters in other empires. If we are to believe the words, then other countries have about 10 such masters. Lin was glad that Faye was so knowledgeable. After all, it was not for nothing that he hired her. When Lin said that she wasn't that strong compared to others, she was about to quit. But suddenly she stopped and said that she had wanted to ask him for a long time. What is the true level of his powers? Lin said he did not want to spread such information. She tried to persuade him, but it was all in vain. But he said that his strength can be compared to a diamond stage master. Faye said he was very strong for his age. She also asked if he could heal the wounds of a supreme stage master, and of course he could. It was wonderful because if she was hurt, she could turn to him. After that, she asked where they would spend the night. Lin offered her to spend the night at his place, but she said that she was only selling her strength, not her body. Lin was a little angry because he only talked about spending the night and nothing more. In the evening, he came home with Faye. Mom was very happy that her son finally brought a girl into the house. While Lin was trying to say something, Faye was already talking to his mother. Lin was sleeping peacefully but suddenly woke up for some unknown reason. He saw Faye lying in the same bed with him. He woke her up and asked what had happened during the night and why she was lying in his bed. But she replied that nothing he thought had happened. It was just that Rick's men brought the equipment at night, and when she picked it up and brought it to the room, she was so sleepy that she fell asleep with him. Lin asked if the bodyguard should not be more careful in such cases, but she said she would have noticed anyway if something was wrong. After that, she gave him 3 tickets and he gave her 1. She thought it was too generous, but Lin didn't mind. Just at the moment when she sat down on the bed, her mother entered the room. Lin immediately realized that his mother had thought of something wrong, but he couldn't explain anything to her. Suddenly, Faye said that she needed to return to the auction hall since 3 days had already passed, and also asked what kind of relationship Lin had with Liu. She told him not to let his guard down around him, because he was not as simple a person as he seemed. She also said that the academies would soon begin accepting students, and Lin was just about to go there. There were a lot of people, much more than he expected. Suddenly, they approached him and said that he would pass through double selection without waiting in line. This meant that not only would the academy choose the student, but the student could choose the academy. Lin stood in front of the admissions committee. The first master called him to the Kyoki Academy and promised to make him the strongest sacrificial warrior. Another master said that he was already the strongest in history and invited him to the Ju-Yun Academy. The representative of the Liyun Academy was in charge of teaching the support class students, and was also a good match for Lin. And from the Shenmeng Academy, they promised to provide him with sources of natural disasters so that he could become stronger. The last girl said that their academy is for women, but if he really wants it, they will gladly take him. To be honest, Lin didn't understand what was going on here, because recently each of them said that they didn't need him. The man said that the students of their academy do not receive resources for free. They first have to try. Also, if he takes first place in the tournament, then all the resources of their academy, roughly speaking, will belong to him. The master from Juyun objected, because apart from the little witch Faye, no one had held the championship for long in the tournaments. Lin realized that Faye was probably a graduate of Kyoki Academy. Academy Master Leon said that the most valuable thing for Lin was the sources of natural disasters, and asked if he had heard of artificial sources. Lin pretended to be very surprised, but in fact he not only heard them, but also created them. He also said that their academy has been working on this issue for a very long time, and they can be called masters in this matter. The master from Kyoki said that all their knowledge is empty babble, because the strongest ones come from Kyoki anyway. A heated argument began between them, and only Lin could stop it. He said that he was very grateful to everyone for their words, but he had already made his choice. He will enter Kyoki. Their master was very happy about this and promised that they will not disappoint him. After that, Lin met with Faye, and she asked him which academy he had chosen. He said that during the interview, he learned that there was a young genius studying at one academy who had reached the supreme stage. Faye thought about it for a moment, and then realized that he was talking about her, and that he had decided to enroll in Kyoki. She was surprised that the academy still remembered her, and also said that she would now become an older sister to Lin. But he didn't like it very much. Suddenly, Lin had the feeling that someone was watching them, and asked her to identify who it was. Faye said that she felt 3 groups of people, and from their conversations, they were from the Ma family. He wasn't very happy that they didn't back down, but he asked Faye to deal with them. She said that she could handle everything in 30 seconds, and he didn't have to worry. At this time, a report was approached to Shin. All 3 groups had been eliminated, and they no longer had people to deal with Lin. But Sin said they couldn't retreat. They needed that pass to ruin number 3. But since Lin turned out to be stronger than they thought and also hired Faye for protection, he has no other choice. Sin decides to turn to his uncle. His name was Zhang. Xing told him that they couldn't handle Lin, so he had no choice but to turn to him. To Xing's surprise, Zhang became interested in Lin and said that he really wanted to meet him. Suddenly, Lin wakes up abruptly in the middle of the night and asks Fei if she felt the same as he did. Lin didn't expect them to go this far. Fei sensed a very powerful master on the outskirts of the city. He must be at least at the peak of the supreme stage. Lin decided that if he continued to hide, they would sooner or later get to his family, so he would have to take the initiative into his own hands. Besides, Fei was also a supreme stage, and they had already prepared the battlefield, and it would simply be a shame for them if Lin didn't come. Xin was sitting in an abandoned area on the outskirts of the city, and when Fei and Lin came, he immediately felt it. Fei tried to attack him from behind immediately, but she couldn't. Zhang stopped her. He was very surprised that at such a young age she was able to master the technique of shadow killing. Xing told Lin that it was indeed not easy to find him, but he succeeded thanks to the compass. Xin didn't delay and immediately told Lin that he was giving him one last chance to give up the pass to the ruins in a good way, and the conflict would be resolved. But Lin refused him again, because by all the rules he had won the auction and the pass belonged to him. This made Xing angry and told Uncle Zhang that he could now attack. However, as soon as he tried to come from behind, Fei stopped him. He would have to deal with her first. But suddenly her sword somehow broke. Zhang said that Fei had become weaker since their last meeting and it had hurt her greatly, and she only fell because her sword had broken. She knew only one person who would use such a weapon. Zhang, who was nicknamed the Master of Three Blades, was at the peak of the supreme stage. Zhang said that if they wanted to live, they should give up the pass and leave in a good way. Otherwise he would kill them both. However, Fei stood up and said that he was greatly underestimating her, and she was not going to give up so easily. When Zhang jumped on her, she enveloped him in her technique and said that she would show him everything she could do. After that, she stuck her blade into the formed cocoon, inside of which was Zhang. But unfortunately her attack didn't work after all. He wasn't a weakling either. First she distracted him, and then in a split second she enclosed him in a shadow cocoon and tried to deliver a fatal blow. It was impressive. Lin tried to run to help Fei, but was stopped by Xing, who said that he would be his opponent. But in fact, Lin was not against it. He had long wanted to get even with him for the previous times. Xin began to transform, something Lin had never seen before. Xing was a level 40 knight and was at the gold stage, so he thought he could easily deal with Lin. If it weren't for Lin, Xing might have pocketed all the treasures of the ruins for himself, but now Lin will pay for it. But Lin stopped the first blow without any problems with one finger. After that, also without making any effort, he knocked it out of Xin's hands. He didn't hesitate and dealt dozens of quick blows to Xin's armor. They turned out to be not so strong and quickly broke. Xin ended up on the floor. Lin said that he would spare him if he gave him the compass, otherwise he would kill him on the spot. But Xin refused, and also added that if he was able to break the armor, it did not mean that he had won. Then Lin launched another attack, but this time it was stopped by the protective field. Xing said that he didn't even have to try. It was a legendary level artifact. Even a supreme stage master couldn't break it. The Ma family was indeed very rich to give such a treasure to a golden stage boy. Xing also added that his bodyguard would not last long, and that they would die together at the hands of Zhang. In some ways he was right. The shield was too strong, and it would not be possible to break it in a couple of blows. But then he has no choice but to transform into his master to use all the power. Xing immediately sensed the power of a supreme stage master, and asked how he was related to Lin. He said that Lin was his disciple, and since the Ma family had decided to kill him, he would have to solve this problem himself. Looking up, Xing saw that the master had begun to use some incredibly powerful spell. Xin tried to somehow excuse himself, but Lin, without waiting for an excuse, used his magic on him. The Ministry of Magic Control has detected another massive surge of energy. The minister was very angry, because he had hoped that this mysterious master had long since left their city. This time the spell was much stronger than the previous one. Was it really the same master? It is possible that 2 craftsmen have appeared in the city. We must immediately declare a top-level alarm and evacuate people. The radius of this spell was too large. Something like this hadn't happened in a long time. At this time, the battle between Zhang and Fei was coming to an end. For her final attack, she used one of her most powerful skills, floating petal execution. Fei admitted that if it weren't for his old injury, she wouldn't have had a chance. But this time she won. Zhang really liked her skill. He thought it was an illusion, but she actually dealt many blows. However, if it weren't for his injury, he would have already moved on to the Saint stage, and he still has some aces up his sleeve. He also had forbidden level skills. Fei knew that if he attacked with this, she would definitely die. However, just before the attack, he felt a powerful aura. Lin's spell easily broke his shield, and Xing was completely shocked by it. The next moment, Xin was shackled by 4 chains on his arms and legs. Lin said that it should be an honor for Xing to die from such a powerful spell. The chains were part of his spell. It would pick a target at random, but once it got a hold, it wouldn't let go until it killed the victim. But just before the strike, his spell collided with another. Zhang said that Lin's spell was so powerful that even he, the master of 3 blades, became interested in watching. But Lin was worried that Zhang was here. Did Fei lose? Xing told Zhang that he didn't have to hold back since this master was trying to kill him. Lin said that as long as they were within the area of his spell, its effect would not stop. Then Zhang most likely used the strongest thing he had, a skill he had not used for a very long time. This was the perfect version of his 3 blades domain. Anything within the range of his sword energy would be destroyed. Then Fei came running and asked where Lin had gone, and he, in the guise of a master, replied that he had transferred his student to a safe place. He told her not to worry. He was not afraid of Zhang's spell, but he himself understood that his strength was already running out. After that, Lin jumped and said, "Let his spell try to destroy what he was currently using." Lin used another forbidden spell and summoned a huge meteorite. Zhang was surprised. Out of the 3 blades, only one remained, but now it had taken the power of the others and became even more dangerous. Lin pretended that he was not afraid of this attack, but in fact, he was so exhausted that he simply could not escape. But he was very lucky that his forbidden spell turned out to be stronger. After that, Zhang didn't even have time to notice how he was also shackled in chains. Lin warned that these chains were not the worst thing. The main dish had been above them all this time, waiting for its moment. Looking up, Zhang froze for a second in shock, trying to understand what was going on. Above them was the guillotine of the god of murder, the final part of his spell, called the Last Judgment. However, to Lin's surprise, Zhang was able to break free from the chains and destroy the guillotine. Lin said that Zhang was truly worthy of the title of Master of the 3 Blades. In the midst of the battle, Tian came to them. He was an old acquaintance of Zhang. Tian said that if they decided to continue the battle, he would have to escort them to the imperial prison. Xing walked up to Zhang and said that it was time for them to end this fight, but Lin couldn't retreat. Even though he destroyed the compass, it didn't guarantee that they wouldn't find it again. Lin said they would not stop until he was given guarantees for his students' safety. Because of Lin's spell, Tian couldn't use his full strength. It was very bad for him. But Lin knew that he was taking a big risk, because he could only hold this spell for 3 minutes. Suddenly, someone came from behind and wondered why the venerable masters were so angry with each other. It was Feng from the Chen family. He came with the others to try to settle the conflict. Lin was uneasy that he would have to fight against everyone. He said that the Ma family tried to kill his disciple, and he was not going to retreat. Feng said that he knew about the whole situation, and since it was the Ma family that started this mess, they would apologize. Sin initially tried to object, but eventually agreed to these conditions. He knelt down and apologized on behalf of the entire Ma family for their reckless behavior. After that, the girl told Lin that since the conflict had been settled, he did not want to reveal his face to Tian. But he replied that he was not going to do that he had no more questions for the Ma family, but he did not promise anything more. Feng was glad that everything ended so well. Lin was also about to leave, but Tian called out to him. Lin asked what he wanted, and really hoped that they wouldn't stop him. However, Tian said that there were many forbidden-level spells flashing around the city, and asked if Lin knew anything about it. Lin lied that he had recently stumbled upon a battle between 2 masters. One was a supreme stage mage, and the other was a supreme stage warrior. However, this did not concern him, so he did not follow the battle. After what was said, he left. Tian was very surprised, because he had mastered the spells of wind, lightning, shadow, and now space. How many more secrets he kept within himself. Arriving home, Lin promised himself that he would not take such risks again, because now he had exhausted all his strength and was on the verge of fainting. The next morning, his whole body ached terribly. If he hadn't been able to scare his enemies, he definitely wouldn't have gotten out of there. Suddenly, Fei came into the room and asked how Lin was doing. He was a little scared, because she came in without knocking, and she didn't understand why he was wrapped up like that. She said she wasn't at all interested in what was under the covers, so Lin said she could leave the bedroom. But in fact, Fei came to say goodbye. She received a task from the Merchant Guild. She also said that she would not return the money because it had already run out. But Lin only hoped that she would continue to protect him once she completed the task. After that, he patted her on the head and told her not to overdo it on the task, because she had also gotten it badly yesterday. Suddenly she said that at the academy where he was entering, her sister was studying, and Fei asked him to look after her. But she doesn't need to talk about this. She doesn't have the best relationship with her sister, and most likely, she hates her. After that, Fei went to the window and said goodbye, but Lin said that she could use the door. When Lin arrived at the academy, he saw a huge gate in front of him. This gate was just disgusting. Maybe it wasn't too late to choose another academy. Suddenly a girl came up to them. She said that the first time she felt the same, however, after the director's words, she understood everything. The director said that after training they would become great masters who would not be ashamed to raise their hands to the sky, and this gate would become a symbol of their goal. After that, the gate became less disgusting, but Lin still felt uneasy. The girl introduced herself. Her name was Yunxin. She was a third-year student. Yunxin said that she had heard a lot about Lin. After all, he had won first place in the exam. She said she was lucky to meet the city's biggest star and led him into the reception area. However, their path was blocked by a guy with flowers. Apparently, he was waiting for Yunxin. His name was Jianan, and he had been chasing Yunxin for a long time, even though she was unhappy about it. She introduced Lin as the strongest student in the city. She decided to help him with the admission procedure. Jianan said that Lin was no longer a little boy and could handle everything himself. However, when he started to approach Yunxin, Lin stood between them, because Yunxin didn't want to talk to him at all. Jianan started laughing at him. He said that just because Lin got first place in the exam, it didn't mean anything. His family is a strong supporter of Kyoki Academy. There is not a single person in the city who does not respect his family. He said that if Lin joined his group, he would forget about this incident. But Lin was not interested and told Jiangnan to get out of the way. After that, with one strong blow, he threw him to the other end of the room. His friends were horrified, but Yunxin said that the blow was very good. When his friends had already picked him up, another girl approached them from behind. She was unhappy and asked how to get to the reception area. She wanted to get it over with as soon as possible. Everyone in the crowd started talking about her. She looked very much like that same student. Lin immediately realized that it was Fei's younger sister. They were like two peas in a pod. After that, Lin came up and asked to register him. He turned to Sister Fei and said that they would now study together and introduced himself to her. But she told him not to talk to her. Lin immediately realized that she was not worth wasting his time on now. When he was registered, he asked if he could get a room in the hostel, and he was given a card for the room. When he reached his room, he knocked and asked if there was anyone there. A short guy with glasses opened the door for him. Lin introduced himself and greeted him, after which he said that they were now neighbors. But suddenly the guy closed the door right in front of Lin. He was in a stupor. However, a second later he came out again. His name was Ten. He was a thunder mage, and he also asked Lin for an autograph. Lin said that since they were roommates, he hoped that Ten wouldn't react that way to him. He said that it would be difficult, because after all, Lin is the only golden stage altar. Their conversation was interrupted by another guy. As it turned out, he was also their roommate, and had also heard a lot about Lina. His name was Liangxi. He was a silver stage spearman. He was a direct descendant of one of the 5 great families, and it seemed that Lin was destined to encounter members of these families. He said that he hoped that they would get along. After all, they would have to live together for the next 4 years. However, Yuan came over and was surprised to see Lin and Liangxi, and also didn't understand who was assigning the students to rooms. Lin said that all their misunderstandings that they had at school were in the past. It was incredible. 2 golden stage masters would live in their room at once, and in honor of this, they could have dinner together. When they arrived at the Academy's restaurant, they were surprised this restaurant was larger than the largest hotel in their city. Liangxi said that the restaurant on the first floor is the only place where you can buy with money. On the other floors, everything is bought with points. With the help of glasses, you can solve any problem here. They are valued much more than money. A girl came up to them and said that their room was ready and asked them to follow her. When they got there, they decided to have a drink to celebrate their acquaintance. Liangxi said that there were people from different classes in their room, and they had a chance to get good seats at the freshman meeting. Liangxi said that this was a battle for the distribution of Kyoki Academy's resources. That year, she promised 10% of all resources for the entire year to anyone who could defeat 20 opponents in a row. Several years ago, one of the students set a record for the Academy and appropriated 60% of its resources. Lin remembered that Fei had bragged about something like that. Could it be that there were still legends about her in the Academy? Suddenly someone knocked on their door and told them to get out of the room. Opening the door, he saw Jiangnan standing with his friends and still looking at Lin with the same arrogant expression. Lin asked him why he came, whether he had enjoyed their first meeting, and he decided to repeat it. Jianan said he didn't take it seriously that time, but it won't happen again. Yunxin said that if they start a fight, they will take away all their points. When Jianan saw her, he said they were just talking and offered her a ride. He had no intention of starting a fight. It wasn't worth ruining her mood. But when Yunxin refused again, Jianan left, saying that Lin was very lucky this time. The girl said that he was not a timid person. Why was he so angry with Jiangnan? Did he really fall in love with Yunxin? Yunxin told her to stop talking nonsense. She told Lin that if he had any problems with Jiangnan again, he could call her. After they exchanged numbers, Yunshin's friend said that they were definitely a couple now. Yuan said that he underestimated Lin. Picking up a senior girl right after entering college was a big deal. Lin said that since he had underestimated him, he could correct it. Lin said that Yuan had had enough of drinking and offered to take him to his room before he did anything wrong. The whole time they were walking, some guy was watching them. When everyone was sleeping, this guy burst into their room with a knife. He tried to attack Yuan, but Lin had been waiting for him all this time and was able to stop him. After that, he broke free and tried to escape through the window. But Lin was not going to let him go and rushed after him. Otherwise, this persecution would never end. Having reached the cemetery, the guy began to attack. He said that Lin's strength was of no use if he couldn't hit him. However, Lin was much faster and easily turned his arm around and stabbed the dagger into his chest. Lin has already fought against a guy with the same tricks. They both become material during attacks. After that, the guy disappeared, and the director approached Lin and said that Lin turned out to be much more capable than he expected. Lin said that there seemed to be something wrong with the security system since they were almost killed by some cultist. Apparently, he used a special technique that allowed him to remain undetected. After that, he asked to tell who it was and why he wanted to kill him. Lin himself didn't know anything, but he began to feel his aura even in the restaurant. It seems he's targeting the entire Kyochi Academy. Turbulent times are coming. The director said that he really wanted to improve relations with his master. Lin was afraid that he would accidentally let it slip and expose himself. But fortunately, everything seems to have worked out. The next day, everyone was at the Kyochi Academy freshman meeting. From the outside, it looked more like some kind of concert. After all, Kyochi Academy is one of the 5 best academies. After this, the girl handed the floor over to the deputy director. He said that the freshmen's meeting was a kind of tournament, and at the end, the judge would award the winner the appropriate points. This is their chance to show themselves and prove that they are worth something. This speech greatly motivated all the students. Kyochi Academy literally screamed that everything depended only on them. They were trying to raise real geniuses. The deputy director said it was time to put the extra talk aside and get the tournament started. Suddenly, the roof began to open up and turned into a huge arena. A man came into the arena and said that they could attack him. He would not hit back, but he did not promise that they would not suffer from their own blow. Lin said that this man was acting strangely, but considering his nature, it was not strange at all. Liangxi heard a little about him. He was a warrior with a very rare Vajra body class. He gets stronger every time someone defeats him, so he can become stronger not only by destroying monsters. Liangxi decided to try to hit him. However, even after using almost all his strength, he was unable to break through the barrier around him. But in reality, Liangxi was quite close to defeating him. He admitted that Liangxi was very strong for his age, and perhaps he would have the strength to defeat him in the future. Lin came out next and asked if he could try. With a little force, he struck the barrier and was able to break through it. The man was sent flying to the other end of the arena, despite Lin only putting in a small portion of his power. The other students were amazed. They couldn't believe that a freshman had such enormous power. The vice director said that Lin earned 10 points for being able to pierce the body of the Vajra. Sister Fei was the next to challenge him. Yuan thought at first that it was her, but she looked a little younger, and her clothes were different. She immediately realized that her sister was using her name again to get into some kind of trouble. When she started to attack, Lin realized that all these shadows were not just an illusion, but it turned out that these attacks were quite material. But he didn't expect anything else from Sister Fei. Apparently, he would have to show his skills. He used the Eye of Truth, and the younger Fei felt like she was being seen through. It was the best way to capture even the smallest details. Now her shadow movement is useless. Afterwards, he struck once at the place where she was. However, just before the blow, he stopped, because she admitted that this time he had won. But she promised that sooner or later she would take revenge. Lin defeated her and earned another 15 points. Who else wants to challenge him? Many in the stands thought that no one would dare to do this after he defeated one of the strongest freshmen. There was a girl sitting in the stands. She decided that she had enough strength to defeat him. However, as soon as she descended into the arena, Jinan stood before her. He said that Lin had first attacked him from behind and then escaped thanks to Yunshin. But now he wouldn't get off so easily. Lin approached him and asked why he was so quick to speak despite his mediocre skills. Jianan asked Hong, that was the girl's name, to use her most powerful magic on him. Yuan asked if it was okay for the two of them to team up against Lin. The deputy said that there were no rules at the tournament, that it was quite logical that they decided to overwhelm him with numbers. Hong used her magic on Jiang'an, and he felt himself becoming stronger. He admitted that Lin was strong, but even he couldn't defeat the two of them. He would make Lin beg him for forgiveness. High magic is certainly a pain in the ass, but it's not something he should be afraid of. He stopped Jiang's punch with one hand and decided to demonstrate the difference in their strength. Then he picked it up and started spinning it in the air. The deputy saw that Lin had enveloped his hands in healing light and had almost nullified Hong's magic. Lin threw Jiangnan up into the air. After that, he turned his attention to Hong. But before he struck, he stopped and said that they should just give up, because she was an ordinary mage. After that, they saw Jiangnan fall back into the arena. Yuan said that the flame armor that Hong cast was completely useless. Jiangnan said that his family would never forgive him for this, and Lin didn't understand why all the offspring of great families were so similar. Hong gave in. She admitted that Lin was too strong for her, because even if they united, they couldn't do anything. Few wanted to challenge him because Lin was incredibly strong and had every chance of breaking Fei's record. Lin told his deputy that he wanted to continue the tournament, but he was getting bored fighting everyone and wanted to move straight to the final stage of the tournament. The deputy said that Lin made him very happy. He didn't think that a first-year student would show up and reach the final stage. He was presented with 5 diamond stage opponents. If he defeated them, he would receive 10% of all Kyoki resources. He said that he would like to assemble a team for himself too. It wasn't prohibited by the rules, but he couldn't assemble a team hastily. He needed to think carefully. Lin looked at his neighbors and told them to get up into the arena. Liangxi never thought that he would be able to participate in the final battle of the tournament. But they were missing one more, and Lin seemed to have someone in mind. He would prefer to do without the uncontrollable variable. After all, not everyone is eager to see them win. In the crowd, he saw Du. If he remembered correctly, she was a mage and perfectly compensated for the shortcomings of their team. He asked her to come up to the arena, and she was very happy about it. The deputy said that since both teams were ready, the fight could begin. One of the opponents immediately rushed at Lin, but he easily stopped him. He admitted that Jiangnan was right and Lin was indeed very strong, but he would still lose. Lin thanked him for the praise, but they didn't think their armor looked too bulky. Just looking at it made him laugh. These words hurt him deeply. Armor should be like this, and he will never accept the newfangled, elegant armor. Suddenly, Lin and Yuan were enveloped in vines. The girl said that there was no time for talking in battle. After that, she raised Du and used life magic to summon monsters. She was surprised that such a small and fragile girl found herself in the tough tournament arena. Liangxi wanted to help her, but another guy stopped him. Du said not to worry about her. She struck the monsters with lightning. The girl said it was not bad, but it seemed Du had forgotten that plants do not conduct electricity. However, immediately after that, she set them on fire. Thunder magic was just a distraction. Could Du really be a dual attribute mage? But when the plants started attacking again, Du used the barrier. It was the body of the Vajra. Everyone understood that she was the owner of the class of 1,000 changes. Lin realized that she didn't need to worry about her comrades. They were doing just fine on their own. But they've only just started, so soon even he'll have a hard time. The main attack was ready. Now they were ready to show what the senior students of the academy were capable of. Their stages were much higher, and on top of that, they had also been fighting together for a long time. Then Liangxi and Yuan decided to join forces and launch a double attack. But as soon as they attacked, there was a big explosion. Suddenly, a girl who had never fought before appeared in the arena. Lin kept wondering which of them was the support in the team, but it turns out the girl was hiding behind the shield the whole time. But this didn't frighten Lin at all, despite the fact that he was left alone. He attacked the magician and the girl with the shield. The magician immediately used a spell, but it was of no use. Lin broke through the barrier without any problems. After that, the lianas tied him up, but even that didn't stop him. He tore them out of the ground and began to control them himself. Without any problems, he tied the 2 girls together. Now he only has 2 opponents left, which is not a problem at all for Lin. He timed the moment well when the support was left defenseless, and then quickly switched to another target. His strength, reflexes, and speed were on a completely different level. Even his rivals didn't expect this from the younger one. Lin was flattered, but said that without this armor, they would be much cooler. This made him even more angry as Lin dared to laugh at his armor. Lin didn't even think that he would find his weak spot so easily, and he lost his temper because of a couple of words. After that, Lin did not wait for an attack and struck first. He easily stopped the attack from both sides, catching the swords with his bare hands. He was a very strong altar and was able to break their weapons without any problem. Afterwards, he healed himself with magic, and it seems that now he has definitely won. He was able to defeat 5 senior students using only his physical strength. Few doubted his strength. Many knew him from the exam, where he also left no chance for his opponents. However, suddenly he felt that someone was following him. Apparently it was those sectarians. In the evening, everyone sat and had fun in the restaurant, celebrating Lin's absolute victory in the tournament. Liangxi thought he was the richest here, but Lin earned himself a whole bunch of points in one day. After a while, almost everyone got drunk and fell asleep. Only Lin was sober. Suddenly, it seemed to him that someone flew past the window. He felt the same as he did in the arena. Now he became even more interested in who it could be. As he walked through the forest, he felt that he was not alone and was simply waiting to be attacked. When he felt that someone was already behind him, he turned around sharply and was ready to strike. But at the last second, he saw that it was Faye. She was glad to see him and said that he was as charming as the last time they met. He asked what she was doing here, whether she had decided to see her sister. She said that if her sister saw her, she would immediately attack her with her fists. Lin was very interested in what happened between them. Faye said that she had been clearing monsters in one dungeon for a whole month and had risen all the way to the third step of the supreme stage. Lin was very surprised by this, because he thought that the dungeon monsters disappeared after being killed. Faye said that Lin was acting like some rich guy who liked to waste money. She explained that there is a limited number of monsters in the dungeon, but each dungeon has a refresh time for these monsters. If the owners hadn't kicked her out, she could have rocked there until old age, but they said she had driven them into debt. Suddenly, she asked if Lin had managed to find out her real name during his time at the academy. He said he was a little busy, but it made her angry because the information was out there and he didn't even ask. When she calmed down, she said that her name was Zhu Yin, and also added that she had learned about the Lord of the Minotaurs. This is the work of the Blood Moon sect, the largest dark sect in the world. Lin didn't understand why they were targeting him like that. Yes, he was strong, but not that special. Faye didn't know anything, but recently they had been making more frequent forays and targeting geniuses. Lin wasn't the only one they were targeting. Faye simply told Lin to take care of himself, and he noticed that her expression suddenly darkened. She said that she would have to join the army soon, so they had to say goodbye today. She noticed that he looked a little sad and asked if he had fallen in love with her. She said she hoped Lin wouldn't let anyone hurt him, but he replied that everything would be fine. He didn't want to leave her a widow. Faye smiled, and only then did he realize what he had said to her. She also told him before leaving to keep an eye on his sister. If she got hurt, Faye would kill him. Lin found himself missing her and seemed to be starting to fall in love. The next day, he stood in the assignment hall of the Kyoki Academy. There were a lot of people there, but that was not surprising. After all, it is here that students can unite into teams and take on some quests. They weren't worried at all after all. Lin was with them. Suddenly some guys passed by them. One of them turned to him. His name was Zhuge. He was the winner of the last exam of Hanyun City. He invited Lin to join them. But he said that he already had a team, and besides, they were too weak for him. Another guy stood up for Zhuge and said that their elder gave him such an opportunity, and he turned up his nose, ungrateful. Lin didn't like this, and decided he needed to explain it in more detail. But Zhuge turned out to be much stronger than the same Jiangnan. He could not be defeated with one blow of his fist. At this time, Director Kaochi Shu approached them and asked what was going on here. Lin immediately felt a very strong aura. Shu was at least supreme stage. After that, Shu turned to Lin's team and said that if they wanted to form a team with him, they needed to follow him. Shu went up to the roof with them. It was the highest watchtower of the academy. The students of Kyochi are its army and deal with all the monsters themselves. Hanyun City had already experienced 3 monster raids. The academy did everything in its power, but each time the consequences were tragic. Su was the overseer of these lands. He observed the behavior of the monsters near the city every day, and recently noticed something. Their movements had changed. Then Lin asked how they could help him. He said that he placed his hopes for a bright future on them. If they became stronger, then it would be much easier to fight off the monsters. Liangxi said that the director wanted to become their mentor, something that even the 5 great families couldn't afford. Lin said that as long as he lives, he will do everything he can to protect people from monsters. From now on, their squad will be called observers. He needs them to become stronger as soon as possible, so he will not feel sorry for them. The next morning, they came to take the task Shu gave them. But suddenly, the girl asked if they really wanted to take this task. Lin asked what was wrong with him, but she suggested that he take a look for himself. Lin still didn't understand what was wrong, but Liangxi said that this was an A-rank task, usually taken by teams where everyone was at least diamond ranked. Apart from Lin, the rest of their team is just average. Such tasks require intelligence and ingenuity, not brute force. And the higher the rank, the more points you will be paid. Lin said that with him they had nothing to worry about, so they could go on their mission without any worries. Manshan County is one of the border counties of the empire. The city itself is located on the top of a mountain, and at its foot a defensive wall is built. They shouldn't forget about basic caution. They don't want any of them to accidentally fall off this mountain. There have been 26 murders there recently. The victims' bodies show no signs of injury, but all of them are missing hearts. The Shenming Academy also managed to send a detachment there, but none of them returned. Apparently, these killers were at least diamond stage, which Lin took down in droves, so they had nothing to fear. Suddenly, the bus stopped abruptly. The driver said that they could get out, but he definitely wouldn't go into the city. Yuan said that this was the only bus that went to Manshan, but the driver still refused. Du asked if things were really that bad in Manshan. The driver said that it was impossible to live there now. Ghosts appeared there every day and tried to drive you crazy. Lin asked if he knew anything about ghosts. The driver didn't want to tell because it was very dangerous, but Lin insisted. The driver said that if anything happened, he warned them and drew them a rough map. Once they enter the city, they need to follow the route and then enter the house. Lin didn't understand at all what was happening, what ghosts there were and where they came from. They reached the house and went inside. The place was literally filled with an eerie aura. Suddenly a ghost actually flew out at them. But surprisingly, he apparently had no intention of attacking them. But he gave off a strange aura. Du said that she would check everything for now, and in the meantime, they had to cover for her. She used the blessing of the holy light to see what was happening here. Lin was surprised because she had just copied the power of an observer, a very rare support class. She saw the students of Shenmeng Academy gathered together, and then, for some unknown reason, they started fighting among themselves. Du couldn't understand what had happened between them, that it had come to a fight. But it seems that thanks to the fight, they accidentally found some kind of portal. They moved into some other space and then disappeared. Suddenly, Du became very ill. Blood began to flow from her eyes and Yuan told her to stop. Du apologized for not really understanding anything. She only saw the portal and then almost passed out. Lin said that everything was fine. Du had done very well and now they had at least some information. After that, Lin himself used the all-seeing eye. With its help, he was able to find the portal in a few minutes. Having moved there, they found themselves in some very strange place. Everything around was red. And it seems that all this was in the blood of the residents of Manshan. Suddenly, Du turned around and pointed her finger to the side. There were bodies of people tied to poles, and they were in a pool of blood. And also each of them had no heart, who could do such a thing. There were also many coffins without corpses inside, which means whoever is behind this wants to continue killing people. Suddenly, a very strange and creepy insect appeared. Lin told Liangji to be more careful. These insects smelled very strange. Suddenly, a guy appeared from behind a pillar, most likely. He was one of the sectarians. After his appearance, he mounted some creatures and began to attack Lin's team. He said that they were not so simple, since they were able to find his world. As a reward, they would have the honor of playing with his babies. Lin told everyone to be careful. There was something wrong with him. His level was too high. Du had lost too much strength and could no longer fight. She was so exhausted that she couldn't even move when the monster approached her. But Yuan and Teng came to her aid in time. The guy said that they were doing very well and he was even starting to like it. Lin knew of only one group of people who were so obsessed with other people's blood and strength. Anticipating Lin's question, he himself answered that he was a guardian of the Blood Moon cult. Liangxi knew that they couldn't defeat this guy. He told everyone to run away while he held him back. Lin said not to talk nonsense. They are one team and will never abandon each other. The guard said that these were too big words for a brat like him. His words hurt Lin a little, and he decided to check who was really the brat here. He used magic and opened a portal and told everyone to quickly get into it. Once everyone had gotten out, Lin said that he would catch up with them as soon as he dealt with this guard. He didn't like it at all, because Lin had just stolen his future collection. Lin said that it was much easier for him to fight alone, because now he could not hold back. Without waiting for his attack, he used his forbidden level spell. After him, the guard fell to the ground. He did not understand what was happening to him. Lin said that he only deprived him of his sight and hearing. What he sees is just an illusion. He won't even understand when Lin approaches him and dies before he can even feel his blow. However, to his great surprise, the guard was still able to react and repel the blow. The guard said that if he was at the royal stage, he would be in very bad shape. Apparently, he was of the supreme stage, and Lin was wrong to underestimate him. But Lin also greatly surprised the guard. His body alone in terms of strength and power was comparable to a king-level master at the peak stage. Lin asked how he could be a supreme stage when his mana reserves were that of a king stage master. It was all thanks to a spell that allowed him to suppress his power for a short time. Now he doesn't even need to do anything. His baby will do everything himself. Lin didn't know what to do. He would be defeated either way. The only thing that will save him is one powerful blow capable of killing the guard. The guard was very amused by this spectacle. He really enjoyed watching Lin's dying efforts. However, it was not that simple. Lin gathered all his strength and struck. Lin wanted to end the fight with one blow, but the guard foresaw this and parried it. But suddenly he saw that something had happened to his monster. Shu appeared in front of them. He didn't think that on the very first mission they would run into one of the guards of the Blood Moon. The guard said that Shu was too stupid to trust Lin to deal with him. Zhu said that he was too confident in himself. He didn't stand a chance against them. The guard decided to test this and attacked first. But he couldn't even get close to the director. His power was in magnetism. As long as there was metal nearby, people like him wouldn't be able to get close to him. The guard said that he would not let them go just like that and would leave a small gift. Just before his death, the guard exploded, but Shu was able to protect Lin. However, Lin said that he felt as if the body of this guard was somewhere in Mansion. Xu realized that Lin wanted to stay, but it was very, very dangerous. But running away was not the best option either. They didn't know when the next attack would come. Suddenly, someone else interrupted their conversation. It was Bian. He was an old acquaintance of the director. Ikshu asked him what he was doing while ordinary people were being killed left and right in Mansion County. He said not to worry, because he had already evacuated all the people, so they were not in any danger. He also said that he had pulled out his disciples and placed them in the main inn of the county. Lin thought he was strange from the very beginning, but he didn't say anything. Before leaving, Bian said that if they wanted to carry out the bait plan, they needed to go to the county market. There were many interesting things there. Xu asked Lin's opinion. He said that despite Bian's smile, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something. Shu himself understood this, because Bian was a real hypocrite. When Lin returned, everyone was very happy to see him, although they had no doubt that nothing would happen to Lin. They asked if he had dealt with that guy, but he said it was just a clone. If it weren't for his mentor, he definitely wouldn't have returned from there alive. Shu asked if they had passed on the information, but they didn't know what was going on yet. And also, there was no reception here. Yan said that the head of this county was also very strong since he had transported them from the battlefield to the inn in just an instant. Yu said that he was a supreme stage. They were on the same mission with him. But everyone except them died on it. But the team decided not to talk about sad things, but to go and celebrate their victory, albeit a small one. After that, they went to the Millennium branch in Manshan. Liangxi said that it was a very mysterious trading organization, with branches scattered throughout the empire. Lin said he would go and look at something. After all, he had special discounts there. Du asked if she could go with him, and of course he didn't mind. Once inside, Du immediately picked out a necklace for herself. It increases defense by 10%. Lin chose a skill book for himself. In total, it would cost 8 million. But they didn't care about the price, because the mentor promised to pay for everything. Lin took the Thunder Fist skill. If he strengthened it, he would finally have a formidable melee weapon. Now, they should be able to defeat the Blood Moon Guardian, but for some reason something was bothering him. Lin strengthened his Thunder Fist 10,000 times and immediately felt its power. It was an incredible power, comparable to forbidden-level spells. It became much stronger, which meant it was time to carry out their plan. Lin told Du that it was time for them to go back, and they left. Zhu asked if they were able to find any equipment for themselves. Liangxi said it was difficult to choose just one because the choice was simply huge. Ten took for himself a staff with a powerful magic stone. Zhu was glad that they had chosen equipment for themselves. Upon returning, he would ask for their quest to be upgraded to a higher level. Zhu said that everyone would return except Lin. He would have one more task. Lin walked through the forest and felt that their enemy was already very close. A second later, the forest was filled with monsters from that very guard. He already thought that Lin wouldn't show up, but he still came. Lin was curious about what had interested them so much, but the guard himself didn't know anything. He was simply following orders. He offered him to become his prisoner, but most likely everything will be the other way around. The guard said he knew about their plan, but in truth, the director may have been much less fortunate than Lin. The guard said that Lin became his prisoner as soon as he set foot on the lands of Mansion, and now he cannot escape. Lin didn't talk much and used the Thunder area. Lin said the biggest mistake is that he is still underestimated. After this, Bian met with the director, and during the conversation, Shu became convinced that his old friend had joined the Blood Moon cult. He said he did it to speak out against the Empire, which that day, instead of rewarding him, left him this hole. Shu said that he never realized what he had done back then, killing his comrades with his own hands for the sake of victory. He still believed that he deserved to enjoy life in the capital, and not shake here because of damn monsters. Zhu asked what the Blood Moon cult had promised him that had caused him to sink to such a low point. Bian replied that they promised the position of city leader and the third step of the supreme stage. Yu said that the difference in their strength was too great and he would never win. But he didn't want that. All he has to do is hold back the director while the guard deals with Lin. After that, Shu used a skill and locked Bian in a box where he could hit him without fear of being hit back. He never thought that he would use this skill again against his former comrade. Now it seemed that it was all over for Bian. He'll just get crushed in this box and he can't even do anything. At this time, Lin was fighting against the guard, but so far he was not doing well. Suddenly, Lin felt a sharp headache. It was as if he had been pierced by something. It was difficult for him to even move. It was blood poisoning. Soon Lin would lose his mind and become a puppet of the Blood Moon. Lin was indeed not in the best situation. His mind was becoming clouded, and his body was no longer obeying him. The guard admitted that Lin was strong enough, but his power was nowhere near the cult's secret spells. But the next moment, Shu took Lin away, and they ran away together, as Shu had lost the battle. Bian ran out of the forest and ordered the guard to catch up with them as quickly as possible. But having reached the cliff, the director and Lin were able to escape. There was no longer any chance to catch up with them. The guard started yelling at Bian for failing to restrain the director, but Shu was badly injured, so they couldn't run far. When they landed, they found themselves in a pack of wolves, but Shu can deal with them without any problems. After a while, he felt very ill and began to spit up blood. Lin wanted to help somehow, but the mentor said that he was fine. Lin asked why he lost. Even though Bian was at the supreme stage, Shu should be much stronger. Shu said that Bian could not defeat him, but said that he could harm his disciples. After that, he said that he sent his clone to them, and if he dies, the clone will self-destruct. Shu didn't know if it was true or not, but he had to check it out. However, in the moment when he was distracted, Bian struck him in the back. Shu was almost paralyzed, but still managed to escape. He apologized to Lin for dragging him into this war with the Blood Moon cult. But at this time, Bian and the guard had already managed to catch up with them. They were no longer worried at all, because they were confident of their victory. Aesir told Bian not to get involved with the Blood Moon. It would end badly for him. Immediately after that, Shu used a forbidden spell. The guard considered him an idiot, because such power would affect him too. The radius of destruction was so huge that they would not have time to escape. Bian tried to stop the meteorite with his spell, but they greatly underestimated the director. His spell was very powerful. The thing was that Lin was helping the director with his spell. It strengthened allies and weakened enemies. The guard tried to dissuade the director, because then he would die along with his student. But he had one more trump card, a protective spell. When it was all over, the meteorite that fell left a large crater. It seems they have won, and it's time for them to return. But after these words, the director attacks Bian. It turns out that they managed to stop the meteorite and were going to continue the battle. Lin began to heal his mentor. Bian had already forgotten that he was still an altar class. The guard tried to attack Lin, but he easily stopped him. But suddenly he noticed that something was wrong with his mana. The guardian said that he had infected his mana with his blood, and if he absorbed it, he would become a demon. But then help came to them. This was the very owner of the Vajra body. He put the guard on the ground without any problems. Lin and Shu thanked him for his help. Without him, things would have been tough for them. Bian began to complain that they were not letting him take back what originally belonged to him. Xu approached him and said that he would never become stronger because of his actions long ago. Bian replied that they would all die sooner or later and everything would no longer matter. After this, he told the guard that it was time for them to leave, but he decided otherwise. He took Lin and moved with him. Lin ended up in one of the headquarters of the Blood Moon cult. The guard said that Lin was literally born to become one of them, but he thought differently and had no intention of becoming such a monster. The guard told him to take his time and look at something first. They brought a guy to the cliff. Apparently, they were going to throw him down. Lin told them to let him go immediately, but the guard advised him to put aside his pity. After that, he said that he had 2 classes. If the demon god likes the sacrifice he brings, he will grant him the 2nd class. Lin is currently only a gold rank altar, but his strength is not inferior to that of a master of the initial stage of the supreme rank. He can't even imagine how strong he will become after reaching the 2nd grade. But Lin said the more he listened, the more disgusted he became. After this, the guard pushed him off the cliff into a sea of blood. He advised him not to resist, because he couldn't be saved anyway. But Lin had to do something, otherwise he would truly become one of them. This blood was almost entirely composed of demonic chi. The guards were informed that 15 Supreme Stage Masters had been sent to search for Lin. But before they could answer, they noticed that something was wrong with the river of blood. Lin's entire body was enveloped in demonic chi, but he continued to resist it. The river of blood began to spread, and everyone was told to leave immediately. Lin was able to summon undead using demonic chi. The guard became more and more surprised Lin was not an ordinary person. Lin said that he would avenge everyone who died at the hands of the guards. The guard sent his men to deal with the Cerberus. But they didn't pose any threat to him, but the guard could still do something. This was his fortress, which meant they played by his rules. Within his spell area, Lin cannot use demonic chi, and the pressure on his mind will only increase. Lin didn't know what to do. He couldn't absorb the demonic chi, otherwise he would turn into one of them. Cerberus clearly can't handle the guard. Is he really going to die here? Lin could only absorb the demonic chi little by little. The guard was delighted, because he decided that Lin had finally agreed to join them. But when he saw that Lin continued to maintain his sanity, he decided to add fuel to the fire. He took control of the Cerberus that Lin created. Now he served only him, which meant he could easily attack Lin. The guard gave the command, and the monster actually rushed at Lin. Lin was on the verge and was about to give up, but he remembered another trump card he was able to transform into Zhang, the master of 3 blades. The guard thought it was nothing more than a cheap fake, but Lin really did become him, but only for 3 minutes. At this time, the masters from Kyoki had already determined Lin's location. Lin's spell hit the Cerberus quite quickly. The Guardian admitted that Lin had won, but sooner or later the cult would rule the world, and he would be waiting for it in hell. Lin didn't understand how, when he was dying, he could talk such nonsense. When he was about to lose consciousness, help came to him. Shu was very worried about him. While they were taking him out, he still lost consciousness, but he will definitely live. While unconscious, Lin saw something very strange. He saw himself in front of him, only in a different guise. After that, he suddenly woke up. Yan started shaking him, but Lin said he was going to vomit. Du immediately brought him some porridge. Liangxi asked if he was sure he was okay. Surprisingly, he felt very well. However, there was something inside him that was trying to consume his mind. Yuan said that Lin had been unconscious for a week. Lin was surprised, because after the battle with Zhang, he only lay there for 1 day. After that, Shu came to him and said that he was very glad that he was okay. The girl asked to leave them for a while. She needed to talk to Lin. First, she introduced herself. Her name was Chenair. She was very curious about how exactly the guard died. Lin realized that they had found his body, but they did not believe that he had killed him. Lin said that he had a magical treasure with him, given to him by his master. He himself didn't really understand anything. Everything happened too quickly. Zhu asked her to let him rest, after all. He had accomplished something that was practically impossible for a student of his level. Coming out of the room, he asked what they thought of Master Lin. Kuei said that he is quite a mysterious person, since nothing is heard about him and no one knows him. Yu said that no matter what he hides, he remains his student. The next day, Lin felt much better. Yuan said that in honor of his recovery, they were inviting him to dinner. When Lin stood in front of the mirror, he felt something. Apparently it was demonic Kui. He couldn't let her out, because then they would just lock him up in prison. Luckily, there was a forest nearby, into which he escaped through the window, telling Yuan that he had a stomach ache. A huge burst of demonic energy appeared in the middle of the forest. Xiu decided that the cult had completely lost its mind to attack during the day, but Qianer said that things might not be that simple. Ixu realized that she was hinting at Lin. She didn't say this directly, but it's still worth checking. Sitting in the forest, Lin released demonic energy. When it was all over, he became a demon. He is awakened a second class called Blood Moon Claws. Lin didn't understand why he needed such a class, because if he was noticed, it would be the end for him. While Yuan was waiting for Lin, 3 masters came to him and asked where Lin was. Yuan replied that Lin was in the toilet, and Shu asked him to open the door. Opening it, he saw Lin sitting on the toilet. Shu apologized and quickly left. Lin understood that he had barely made it in time. He needed to go and buy himself something that would suppress his internal qi. However, when he reached the branch, he met Qianer. Lin said that he decided to look for something for himself, but she seemed to suspect him of something. Suddenly, Manager Lu came out and said that he was very glad to see Lin. Qianer asked how they knew each other. Lu said that Lin is one of the honored guests, and they are always glad to see him. She said that since that was the case, Lin could buy something, and she would pay for everything. She said it was for her own benefit, and that someday she would need help too. He said that if anything happened, he wouldn't let her down. After that, she said goodbye and left. Lin understood that she suspected something, but was waiting for him to reveal himself. The Qianer family reported that the Ma family had indeed encountered a powerful master near the Lin family's house. She understood that Lin was very unusual and really wanted to know everything. She asked to destroy all information. No one should see it. At this time, Lin was already asking Liu if he had what he needed. Liu said it was a pretty rare item, but Millennium had it all. He presented him with an artifact that met all the requirements. An epic-level starstone that can suppress most QI. Lin bought it for 50 million and immediately improved it. After that, he said goodbye to Liu and left. Now, after the improvement, the artifact completely suppressed Qi. The cult has already received a report about the death of one of the guards. The master said not to touch Lin for now, and just continue observing. The guy said he would do everything right. Now no one will be able to find out that Lin is connected to the cult. Suddenly he met his team, and they thought he was on a date with Qianer. Lin tried to explain everything, but no one listened to him. They just jumped on him and started beating him, as a joke, of course. Suddenly, Sister Fei came up to them and said that she didn't expect to see Lin in such a deplorable state. Liangxi asked what she meant, but she didn't answer. Yan said that she had a very bad character, not like her sister. But as soon as he finished speaking, the younger Fei rushed at him. Lin stopped her and asked why she was reacting like that to her sister. She said that her sister was a traitor who rejected her family. Their conversation was interrupted by a guy who said that he had a new task for them. This time it won't be as dangerous. Besides, he will personally supervise the task, so there won't be any problems. People defended the wall, shooting back at the monsters. The border wall fighters do this all the time, and it all depends on teamwork. All they have to do on the mission is destroy 3 small groups of monsters. They will split into groups of 2 and go on a cleanup mission. The next day they split up, and Lin was teamed with Du. She said that there was a pack of wolves ahead of them, but they were weak, so she would deal with them herself. And indeed, she did it very well. She destroyed the wolves one after another without any problems, but suddenly she was attacked by another one, whom she did not expect. Lin helped her deal with it. He said that she switches between magic very well, and it's just amazing. But suddenly she noticed that the wolves began to run away. Usually wolves run to their den, but now they headed towards the snake turtles. Lin said that they had no time to think, and taking her hand ran. The snake turtles were looked after by the younger Fei and Xiao Ge. They also did very well. But due to carelessness, the younger Fei was still injured. Xiao Ge was distracted and was also hit. Xiao Ge said that she was willing to die to save her captain. But Lin came to their aid just then. He asked if some snake turtles were causing her problems. Du asked him not to stir up trouble and just sort things out with them. In just a couple of minutes, he defeated all the monsters with his bare hands. Sister Fei was surprised that he was able to destroy gold-ranked monsters so easily without magic. Lin said that now they need to report to the teacher about the completion of the task. But suddenly, Sister Fei lost consciousness. Lin decided that his healing spell could help her. After all, he was an altar. Xiao Ge asked why she wasn't getting better. Lin himself didn't understand, so they urgently needed to call the teacher. Half an hour later, he was already with them. He said there was something circulating around her heart, and it was putting her life at risk. Medicine in the borderlands is not so advanced, so it needed to be moved to the city as soon as possible. The teacher said that something strange was happening with the monsters, because originally they were silver rank. He asked Du and Xiao Ge to stay and help defend the wall. He really hoped that everything would be okay with little Fei, but he had a bad feeling about it. Lin ran to the doctor and said that they urgently needed help. He immediately told us to prepare the operating room. Lin hoped that everything would be fine. Otherwise, how would he be able to look Fei in the eyes? After the operation, the doctor said that everything was fine with her now. However, this was a very dangerous phenomenon. She was infected with heartworms, which were harmless until the cult made them deadly. It turns out that the monsters have become stronger thanks to these parasites. Younger Fei woke up and said that they urgently needed to get to the borderland. Lin tried to dissuade her since she had just had surgery, but she insisted on her own. At the hospital, Yunshin approached them and said that she had been nearby. Lin said that they urgently needed to report the situation to the academy and return to the borderland. After moving, they found themselves in some kind of room. This was the Mansion County morgue, but why were they moved here? Yen said that the monsters had gone crazy and that everyone was being evacuated now. Lin left the evacuation to him and ran off to join the others. And something very strange was really happening there. In the body of the huge snake, Lin saw a very familiar spear. He immediately realized that it belonged to Liangxi, but where was he? While they were thinking, the snake looked at them and then ran away. Nobody understood why this monster escaped. But immediately after they saw a battle between 3 huge monsters. Junior Fei suggested dealing with them, but Lin replied that they were at least peak supreme rank. Then she suggested simply going around them, but it was too late. The monster fell near them and seemed to notice them. All they could do was run. Lin picked up the younger Fei in his arms, and they all started running away. Apparently the monsters decided to unite against them, but no one knew the reasons. It was also impossible to escape from them. They were too fast, and that was a real problem. Lin suggested to Yunshin that they split up and meet at the same place later. Younger Fei asked why Lin was carrying her in his arms, and he replied that if anything happened, they would die together, like in romance books. After that, they split up, and now there was a chance of survival. Half an hour had already passed, and Lin was still running. Suddenly he saw a cave and decided that they could wait there. Afterwards, he and the younger Fei jumped down, and it seemed to help. The monsters lost sight of them. Lin knew that he could defeat them with forbidden-level spells, but he was not alone. Suddenly someone approached them from behind. After that, they started to fall somewhere. After a while, they fell and found themselves somewhere deep in the cave. Suddenly, the younger Fei realized that their teacher was standing in front of her. She started shaking Lin. She did it with such force that he felt sick. The teacher asked her if everything was okay with her wound. She said that the doctors removed the parasite and now everything is normal. And Lin asked what happened here. He said that they appeared out of nowhere, and he had to fight them alone. However, when other monsters began to arrive, he decided to retreat. But on the way, I again came across high-ranking monsters. That's why he decided to wait here, and then he met them. Lin said that Yunshin was with them. They separated from her to escape from the monsters. They agreed to meet at the same place where they separated. Lin said that he needed to go and find her, and the teacher decided to go with him. But Lin said that they would be easy prey for them, so it would be easier if he went alone. The teacher agreed, but told him to return before nightfall, regardless of whether he found her or not. After going outside, he used the all-seeing eye to quickly find Yunshin, but it showed that her tracks ended here. Lin began to scream and call her, but she did not respond. Walking a little further, he found her sleeping under a tree. She said she had set up a barrier that would warn her of danger, but he didn't react to Lin because he didn't wish her any harm. He said that he had found a teacher, and they needed to return to him. While they were walking, it was already dark. You need to be very careful, because there are still monsters walking around somewhere. But suddenly Lin stopped. He had a very bad feeling. Using the all-seeing eye, he saw monsters at the entrance to the cave, and also the teachers with the younger Fae, who were also surrounded by monsters. After that, they rushed to their aid as fast as they could. Having reached the cave, Lin easily pushed back the monsters, and Yunshin was even more surprised by his strength. But besides the monsters, there was someone else threatening the teacher and the younger Fae. At this time, Lin and Yunshin had already come running. The teacher told them to run away, because their opponent was a peak supreme stage master. They were no match for him. After this, the teacher was mortally wounded and died almost immediately. Younger Fae tried to catch him, but it was already pointless. She was very angry and determined to finish off this master. But Lin came up from behind and turned it on. He did the same with Yunshin and carefully placed the girls aside. His opponent didn't understand why he did this, but Lin replied that he did not want them to see him kill him. This made him laugh really hard. He couldn't even imagine how easy it would be for the kid to hurt him. Their master asked them not to touch Lin, but since he came himself, it was a sign. Lin asked if he was afraid that his master would knock the wind out of him. He said that he controls everything within a radius of 5 kilometers. No matter how strong his master is, he won't do anything to him. Lin said that he still had no intention of surrendering to the ordinary 6 of the Blood Moon cult. These words deeply affected the guard. Lin continued to say that they were simply expendables for the cult. Suddenly, the guard thought that Lin was just stalling for time so that his master could arrive, but even so, they would not win. Since he was so confident of his victory, Lin asked him to introduce himself. His name was Dan. He was a tiger spirit. After that, he immediately rushed at Lin with the intention of killing. However, he easily pushed himself off and began to run away from the caves. This was necessary so as not to accidentally hurt the girls. When Lin stopped, Dan asked if he really thought he had a chance against him, but Lin simply moved away far enough so as not to harm anyone. The next moment, he already used his Thunder Fist. Dan didn't understand where the Golden Stage Altar got such power from. He felt that he had the strength of at least a top-ranking master. Dan's spells were already familiar to Lin, since he had them himself. Their blows collided, and Lin was no less effective than his opponent. Dan admitted that Lin was indeed strong. He didn't even think that he actually possessed forbidden spells. He also realized that it was he who killed the previous guard, and not some master. Lin was very amazing. No altar could do that. This is probably why their lord was so interested in him. Now Dan wanted to personally find out all the secrets hidden in Lin's body. At this moment, Lin decided not to hold back and activated his second form. Now he was determined to kill Dan. Dan didn't understand where such a terrifying aura came from. He attacked Lin, but he easily repelled his attack. But the attack was actually quite dangerous. Dan couldn't understand how Lin activated the spell that only cult members could use. But from Lin's appearance, everything was clear. Dan asked if Lin had already joined their cult, but he replied that their cult was of no use to anyone, and that they were not the only ones who could wield these spells. But Dan already knew too much, so he couldn't be left alive. But Dan couldn't calm down and began calling Lin a real genius. In all the time of their cult's existence, they have never had such a talented follower. He began to persuade Lin to join them, since he had no place among ordinary people. But Lin still considered the cult a bunch of pathetic bastards. These words really hurt Dan. He considered the cult to be true perfection. After that, he promised to tell everyone Lin's secret. Then he would definitely crawl to them. But in that case, Lin had no choice but to finish him off. He had already spent more time than he had planned. In his demon form, his strength and speed increased exponentially. Now he was several times stronger than Dan and could deal with him. But with each passing second, it was becoming more and more difficult for Lin to maintain his sanity. Now Lin looked more like a cult follower than Dan. He knocked his weapon away and sank his teeth into his flesh. He was ready to bite him to death. But after tearing off the first piece, he spat it out in disgust. Since he couldn't eat him, the only thing left to do was kill him right now. But a huge monster prevented Danya from escaping. It was a royal python of the highest level of supreme rank. Upon seeing Lin, he immediately threw him aside and then moved on to Dan. After a while, Lin woke up. He didn't expect the python to be so strong. If it weren't for his support spell, he definitely wouldn't have survived this. Afterwards, he found the younger one, Yongxin, and the teacher's lifeless body. Lin said that they needed to leave as soon as possible. For their sake, the teacher sacrificed his life. He could not allow his sacrifice to be in vain. There was a royal python roaming nearby, so they couldn't take the teacher's body and had to bury it right here. The monster can find the others at any moment and crush them. Meanwhile, the others continued to fight the monsters. Suddenly, Du ran out and said that they needed to escape as quickly as possible. She saw someone fighting a huge python. Dan tried to call his elder to report all the information to him. Suddenly, he appeared and began to scold Dan for bringing this python here. Dan knelt down and begged not to tell the ruler anything. The elder said that he would detain the python, and Dan would report everything to the ruler in the meantime. The python really exhausted Dan, and he was glad that the elder saved him. But Liangxi and the others stood in his way. He introduced himself and said that he was Kaoki's disciple. Hearing this, Dan laughed and said that he could do to them the same thing as he did to their teacher, or to be more precise, to kill. Lin watched everything and was very scared that his friends were fighting with Dan. He needed to help them as soon as possible. Lin said that there were no monsters nearby and instructed them to pass on all the information to the management. And at this time, he will look for Liangxi and the others. Dan is too strong for them to cope on their own. When he left, the younger Fei said that she had some business left to do and would be back soon. Afterwards, she called someone and asked them to fulfill one request. Dan had almost finished with everyone. He was about to finish off Du, but he was stopped. He was stopped by Lin in a different form. After that, he used revival magic. With this, he was able to bring back to life everyone who was on the verge of death. He asked not to thank him and to leave here as soon as possible. Dan said that he would never let them go in his life. He decided to start with Lin since he thought he only had support magic. He didn't even doubt his victory. But Lin took out a sword and used it very well. Dan was furious. He wanted to know everything about this master. But suddenly a third one joined their battle. Lin instantly felt the murderous aura and the already familiar skill. It was Fei, but what is she doing here? She asked Lin to give up Dan to her, and she was instructed to finish him off. But he also had claims against him, so they decided to unite. Dan didn't understand why the goddess of thorns was attacking him. There had never been any hostility between them. But she had her own reason for this. They were winning easily, but just as Lin was about to finish him off, he saw an explosion. With the help of the divine eye, she saw another cult follower restraining the python. And also the python's venom was too powerful. Ordinary people couldn't withstand it. It looks like Lin will have to take risks again. Lin said that the hardest part was behind her and that Fei herself would be able to finish off Dan. She tried to say something to him, but he quickly left. Just at the moment when the python could have been killed, Lin came. He stopped the attack and saved the monster. After that, he said to introduce himself. His name was Li. Lin turned to the python and suggested that they join forces. Python didn't say anything, but his behavior made it clear that he agreed. This made Li very angry, and he had no intention of holding back. As soon as he tried to hit Lin, the python covered him with its body. Thanks to this, he was able to prepare his spell. At this point, Dan begged Fei not to kill him, in exchange for which he offered to tell her Lin's secret. She was interested and let him speak. He said that Lin became a Blood Moon follower, but she didn't listen any further and cut off Dan's head. Suddenly, she felt a very powerful spell, the same one that Master Lin used, and it seems that the one who helped her fight ran in the same direction. Could it be that he was that same master? Lin had already used one of his most powerful spells, Judgment of the Sinner. Li tried to fend off Lin's attack, but the python stopped him. There was a big explosion, after which Li should have died immediately, but there wasn't a scratch on him. Now it was his turn to attack. It was the first time Lin had encountered such a powerful master. He was too fast, and Lin wouldn't have time to dodge. But at the last moment, Fei came to his aid again. The attack hit her a little, but Lin was able to catch her. She was amazed at how many secrets Lin had within herself. She turned to Li and said that now she too would fight him. But Lin said that he couldn't take such a risk. After all, Li was insanely strong. Fei approached him and said that she was very pleased that he was so protective of her. At this moment, Li began to cast his spell. Fei said to stop him, otherwise things would get really bad for them. After that, Fei used her forbidden technique. Li held the shield and continued to cast the spell at the same time. They still managed to break through the shield. Fei rushed to finish him off, but it was in vain. Li managed to finish the spell and summon Taktagata. Lin couldn't move. The only salvation was to take on a demonic form. But instead, Fei found herself exposed again. Lin said she shouldn't have done that, but she was glad that he was okay. He laid her on the ground and began the healing. Lee said that it was all pointless, because they were already corpses anyway. But Lin had already taken on a different form and was ready for battle. Only now did Lee realize that Lin was the one their lord was looking for. But he didn't care. He just wanted to kill Lee as quickly as possible. Lee said that Lin was the chosen son of their god and they had no need to fight. Lin had no intention of talking to him and just wanted to fight. Lee felt his aura and even felt fear for a moment, and Lin was already fully prepared for battle. Lee was still wondering how he managed to join the cult while remaining human. But Lin was becoming more and more crazy and just wanted to devour Lee. Lee decided to fight anyway and activated his second form. Now Lin wanted to fight even more. While Lee was in this form, he could not be harmed by physical attacks. But Lin succeeded. He didn't believe it and thought it was just a coincidence. But he was unable to take on another form again. Lin began to suck out his chi, causing him to become weak. Lai rushed at him, but Lin pierced his body with one blow. Lin's mind was almost completely clouded, and he could hardly contain himself. He threw Lee to the ground and began to devour him. At that moment, Faye woke up and saw everything. She couldn't believe that Lin had actually become one of the cult. She tried to talk to him, but when he saw her, he smelled a very sweet scent. She told him to control himself, but Lin clung to her. Despite the pain, she still tried to bring him to his senses. She knew it wasn't him doing this, but the demon inside him. She knew him as a man who was ready to do anything for his loved ones, as someone who will always come to the rescue, and as the only friend. After that, she came closer and kissed him tenderly. This finally brought him to his senses, but he told her to leave. He still can't control himself. She tried to object, but he insisted. Faye pretended to leave, but in reality she decided to just stand back and watch. At this time, Lin tried to contact the demon inside himself. He found himself inside his own mind, and there he met him, with the same monster inside him that almost made him hurt Faye. Lin told him to get out of his head, but he had no intention of doing that. Lin said that in that case he could erase it with one movement of his hand. The demon thought that Lin would not dare to do such a thing, but he was serious. Since the demon is in his body, he will simply destroy it. Lin was very scared, but the fear of harming his loved ones was much greater. The demon said that he would not do this, because everyone was afraid of death. Then Lin gathered all his strength into his fist and struck himself with lightning. The demon told him to stop, because the next blow would be the last. But Lin had no intention of stopping. Either the demon gives up and goes deep into the mind, or Lin kills it along with himself. At the last moment, the demon recognized him as the leader and agreed. Lin ordered him to hide and not show himself. Before leaving, he said that Lin would greatly regret this. After that, he lost consciousness. When he woke up, he told Faye that he had done it, but immediately afterwards he passed out again. At the hospital, Faye was always with him, and one day her younger sister came to see him. She said she just came to thank him for saving her. Faye praised her because she had already reached the peak of the golden stage there. Afterwards, they had a conversation, and Faye said that she had reasons for leaving her family. She didn't want to talk about them. This made the sister very angry, and she started shouting that Faye was just a traitor. Faye said that someday she would find out everything and forgive her. And immediately after that, she jumped out the window and left. And she left because she noticed the guardian of the Kaoki Academy. He didn't expect to meet her in the borderland. She asked why he, being a master of the holy stage, did not come to help. But he only said that he could not leave the academy without permission. Faye said that if it weren't for Lin, there would be nothing left of the city. She didn't want to continue the conversation, so she just left. After that, Director Shu approached him. He said that most likely there is a traitor among the leadership working for the cult, but this still had to be proven. He also said that the first signs of a natural disaster had appeared on the border. It looks like it's going to be very busy there soon. After some time, Lin finally woke up. Liangxi said that this time he lay there for a whole month and it even scared him. And then he remembered the kiss with Faye, and now he didn't know how to behave. Du said that Faye had returned back to the army. It was good, because he wouldn't have to explain himself to her right now. He also noticed that his friends had changed as well. Du was able to reach the golden stage. Yuan was at the peak of its golden age. Liangxi also reached the golden stage, and Ten was at the peak of the diamond stage. Lin felt like he had been lying there for several years. Liangxi said that since everyone was gathered, they would be able to participate in the 5 Great Academies tournament. If they win, they will receive 20% of the resources for a whole year. Of course, Lin couldn't refuse something like that. As it turned out, they had already signed up there and were just waiting for Lin to recover. After this, the elders entered the room. Lin said that they were just in time and offered to take part in the tournament. It sounded very interesting after all. Resources are never redundant. Tianair said that she would agree if Lin went shopping with her. And of course he agreed. The next day, when he left the hospital, she was already waiting for him. Lin said she looked great. When they walked, all attention was only on them. Or to be more precise, online, Xianer noticed that something was wrong with him. But the next moment, everyone started calling Lin their hero. Xianer said that while he was in the hospital, rumors about him spread throughout the city, so now he has fans. Lin took Xianer's hand and they ran. This was not the first time for him. Then he ran around the corner to hide from the crowd. He said that they could hide here. She felt very embarrassed when Lin hugged her. When he looked at her, she said she was just a little out of breath. He suggested that she exit from the other side so that they would definitely not be found. But there he saw that they had already reached the millennium. And since that was the case, he decided to go to Liu. Liu was very happy to see him. He said that he even visited Lin in the hospital. One of the guards at the entrance asked why Liu was treating this guy like that. He showed him a post that said Lin had been awarded the highest class medal for heroism. At this time, Liu showed him the tiger spirit weapon. Lin realized that it was Fei who brought it, since she was the one who killed that demon. Liu offered Lin a discount on the item, but he refused. Afterwards, he handed him a note from Fei. An anomaly appeared at the site of their battle with Li. Liu said that Fei gave it to him about a month ago. This was bad, because a natural disaster could break out there any day now. The next day, Lin, in the guise of a master, already headed there. With the help of the divine eye, he immediately found this place. Luckily, the natural disaster had not yet appeared, and he could take the source. But as soon as he jumped, he heard voices. Apparently, he was not the only one who knew about this source. Lin felt a very strong aura. As it turned out, the girl wanted to get a source for her brother. He was an altar boy and wanted to reach Lin's level. Then her master used a spell and accelerated the development of the natural disaster. Lin was a little scared at first, and then I saw that very source. He had no intention of sharing it with anyone. At this time, the fluctuations in magical power had already been reported to the administration. The master told the girl that she would not go further, because the source could explode. But suddenly Lin appeared and began to break the source barrier. He said that this source would go to him. He is not going to give it to the one who entrusted his development to his sister. The girl started screaming that the source belonged to them. But Lin didn't even listen to her. Having broken the first barrier, he reached the barrier of the source itself. But just as he wanted to break it, he felt that he was being attacked. Lin had no doubt that it was that old man, but he was actually aiming at the source. Then Lin began to protect him with all his might. The old man immediately realized that this was a forbidden level spell. But Lin was covered with stones and no one thought that he had already died. But Lin remained unharmed, and finally took his source. But something was wrong. He felt strong vibrations from below. The old man immediately felt that there seemed to be a second source there. Lin noticed it in exactly the same way. He couldn't miss such a chance, and without thinking went down further. He had never encountered such a powerful source before and was surprised. He immediately tried to take it, but everything turned out to be not so simple. As soon as he touched it, he immediately jumped back. The source completely burned his hand. He healed her and kept trying. Finally, after many attempts, he managed to take it. He is probably the first in the world to obtain such a powerful source. He went out into the street in the guise of a master. But the old man and the girl continued to wait for him there. Lin said that they have no right to be here because they live in another empire. But the old man replied that there was only one Saint Stage Master in the academy, so he had nothing to fear. Afterwards, he said to give him both sources. Lin had no intention of giving anything up, but there was no point in fighting the saint either. Instead, he used the shadow area and disappeared. The spell was so powerful that the old man could not detect its aura. He told the girl to try to find him herself. She possessed the Eye of Truth, a very rare spell. But even so, she only noticed a trace where Lin had disappeared. It felt like he never left. All this time, Lin had been hiding his aura with the necklace. But because of the girl, the old man guessed everything and hit Lin. He said that he didn't want to cripple Lin, but simply wanted to take the sources. But he still refused. He said that he got there first and got them himself. Besides, this is the territory of another empire, and they have no right to lay claim to local resources. Then the old man said that he would beat Lin until he gave everything back. The old man was much stronger, and Lin was only defending himself. From time to time he managed to heal. The old man said that Lin was quite strong, but he was no match for him. He once again told Lin to give up the sources in a good way, but as expected, he had no intention of doing so. But just as Lin wanted to use the demon form, the guardian appeared. The old man told him that he would simply take the springs and leave. Lin was very lucky, because if he had changed his form, he would have had to fight two saints at once. The keeper said that a resident of another empire has no rights in this territory. If he doesn't want his student to be hunted, he should leave right now. The guardian said that he would not let anyone harm the one who almost single-handedly defeated Li. It was to Lin's advantage that he was mistaken for that master. Hearing this, the old man decided to leave. The student asked if they were just going to leave. The old man answered her that the keeper would not throw words around, and that she could indeed be hunted. Lin was surprised that he just left. After this, the keeper thanked him for saving the city, and Lin left. When he returned back, he saw the younger Fae. She said that she came to meet him. She said she had something to talk to him about. And then, very embarrassed, she thanked him for saving her. He said that everyone would do the same. After which, she quickly ran away. He behaved very strangely, but it seemed that Lin understood everything. She also understood everything, but did not want to accept that she had fallen in love. 2 weeks later, the qualifying round of the tournament took place. The team stood and waited for the judge to speak. Yuan said that the 4 of them were doing well, so Lin would not participate. One of their team started shouting that they were too conceited. Everything was as usual. The conversation didn't go well from the very beginning. When the fight began, Lin decided to simply stand aside. 3 of them immediately headed towards him. But before that, they need to go through Du, and also through Liangqi. Tennu got the weakest opponent, so he didn't even strain himself. Yuan fought in his own style, but even at that speed he was caught. After that, their captain headed towards Lin. Now it's time to end their long-standing feud. Lin didn't want to fight, but now he couldn't hold back anymore. If he can withstand 1 blow, Lin will admit defeat. He said that this time Lin would answer for his words. But a second later, he was lying unconscious. His team just stood and watched. Lin asked if they would continue without the captain, and they of course refused. Lin didn't want to interfere, but that's how it turned out. During the break, the keeper congratulated Lin and said that there would be a very good reward in personal battles. Lin was very curious whether this would be the source, but the keeper said nothing more. The final of the single battles has arrived. They announced that the main prize would be a spring. Lin was surprised that the keeper was telling the truth. Even though he didn't believe it, he couldn't refuse it. In the very first second, he had already dealt with one. That's exactly why he didn't want to participate. The next one to decide to fight him was the younger Fae. Since their last battle, they had both grown stronger. Yuan was surprised that Lin had become so strong. Lin said that as a killer, she should not allow herself to be driven into a corner. She did a great job, so a gentle push was enough. At this time he was attacked from behind, but even so, it was not possible to defeat Lin. It took too long to deal with each one, so he decided to knock them all out at once. Taking out his staff, he cast a spell of 10,000 lightning bolts. Everyone started running from the arena. He held back as best he could, just to immobilize everyone. Everyone knew how strong he was, but knocking them all out with one spell was too much. Now Channer decided to fight him. Lin said he had no intention of holding back, but of course, he didn't fight at full strength. She understood this, and said that he would regret it if he did not fight seriously. One could only envy his speed and reaction. But she was also incredibly strong. She said that if he continued to defend himself, she would simply push him out of the arena. Now it's time to use the alter skills. After the enhancement spell, he was ready to fight. But as soon as he attacked, everything became clear. With the power up, he became simply invincible. Qin'er could no longer feel her hands. But when her weapon broke, everything became clear. He didn't finish her off, and she just gave in. He thanked her for the fight and helped her up. After half a month, he went to the kingdom's passage hall. During this time, he was able to reach the 39th level and was ready to make the transition. When Lin arrived, the girl was simply in shock. When he took the task, it was again of the highest rank. To do this, you had to go to the dungeon of Mount Wulin, which opened once a day. Lin was determined to complete the task as soon as possible. When it opened, everyone immediately rushed there. But Lin was much faster and got there first. He immediately saw the first opponents. Not wanting to waste time, he used Thunder Fist on them. Apparently, the attribute of lightning was their weakness. Half an hour later, he found the mountain deity. He asked him to help fight off the monsters. There were a lot of them, but there shouldn't be any problems. The deity has strengthened it, and quite well. There was no point in hiding his abilities, so Lin gave it his all. He used several spells at once. He used lightning to destroy monsters, and the deity kept giving him strength all the time. So they did it very quickly. After some time, they reached the last monsters. There were no problems with them either. Lin broke the record for completing the route, taking just under an hour and a half. He also activated a hidden quest. No one had done it before. Lin didn't really want to do it, but he had no choice. The essence of the task was to free the souls of the warriors. Lin didn't understand anything, but he went anyway. And there they actually met a shaman. These warriors did not look dead, but cursed. The shaman did all this. But how can they free the souls of these warriors? Their army was quite large, and there was also a leader. The shaman was really looking forward to turning Lin into one of the spirits. After that, the curses began to attack. A platinum rank boss has also appeared. His skills were incredible, but Lin had no intention of retreating. He will complete the task even if he encounters God himself. He also struck with lightning, and it seems to have temporarily restored reason to the souls. The boss said that the shaman deceived them. He could not continue further as the curse began to return. It was very bad because they never found out anything. The boss said they needed to kill him to free the others. Lin could simply leave and receive a reward, or free the souls and receive a much better reward. The curse had finally returned and a quick solution had to be found. The deity suggested leaving, but Lin was against it. He used several spells again and attacked the boss. Before he died, he thanked Lin for saving him. The deity congratulated Lin on his passage. At this time, something terrible began to happen on the outskirts of the city. Hundreds of monsters attacked the city again. This needed to be reported to the academy as soon as possible. And Lin has already moved to a new kingdom. He received a soul stone and wondered if it could be improved in the system. And as it turned out, it is possible. After being strengthened, he received the souls of the warriors of Mount Wulin. This was another forbidden spell. And then he started running away from the crowd of fans again. 3 days later, Lin stood in the forest. He couldn't get a connection, and he also didn't understand where all the monsters had gone. When suddenly I saw the younger Faye. She was running away from a huge bear. Lin came down from the tree and saved her. He greeted her, but she said nothing, and she just rushed to hug him. She said there was no connection because of a cult that decided to cut them off from the rest of the world. They needed to report everything to the authorities of the nearest city as quickly as possible. The city's protective dome fell and it plunged into chaos. Lin said they needed to split up. He will go to the city, and she will run for help. It was all very strange, and Lin didn't like it at all. At this time, chaos was raging in Kyoki Square. The Blood Moon cult attacked openly, and the academy couldn't cope at all. The founder of the cult was incredibly strong, or more precisely, at the peak of the holy stage. The Guardian's shield was broken. He could no longer fight, so he told everyone to try to escape. But Liangxi said that they would fight to the end. If we're going to die, then we're all going to die together. 2 guards came out to the keeper. He was too weak and couldn't even defend himself. The Lord began to suck out chi from the fallen people. He grew stronger with every second. The guards said that today they will wipe out the academy. The Lord began to read the spell. But just at that moment, Lin arrived. He struck the monsters in the square with his spell, and also 2 guards. After that, he used 3 forbidden-level spells. The Lord was surprised that someone from the academy was capable of such a thing. After that, he healed everyone. Now only the keeper understood what Lin was capable of, and the Lord found out that this was the very guy he had been looking for. He stood out from the rest. Lin immediately felt the power of the ruler, but suddenly he began to raise his monsters. They were much stronger than the academy students. This was a big problem. Lin had a plan, but the Lord prevented it. He attacked Lin so quickly that he didn't have time to react. All he could do was block the attack. Liangxi joined in and began to help Lin. Then he decided to try out his new spell. He summoned an army of undead. The Lord did not understand where he got the summoning spell from. This army will be able to deal with monsters without any problems. The other students also began to exterminate animals. While everyone stood in shock, the keeper realized that the mysterious master was Lin. The ruler decided to speed up the battle and suggested enjoying the spectacle. The moon turned red and the animals began to change. The Lord used the Demon King's domain. All of its characteristics dropped by 90%. It also blocked the use of elemental spells. But Lin also had a trump card. Having changed appearance, all negative effects ceased to work. Now even breathing has become easier. But even one blow from the Lord took away too much HP. A couple more blows like this and Lin might die. The Lord suggested testing how long Lin could hold out, but he still had something to surprise him with. Lin parried blow after blow, and then he recovered, taking the Lord's key. The Lord said that he would not last long, and that he would lose control. The demon inside Lin pressed on him more and more. Even so, he did not lose his mind. The demon offered to simply give him this body, but Lin resisted. Lin was so exhausted that he was ready to simply fall over, and the constant onslaught of the demon was very annoying. Lin's HP has dropped below critical point. This was precisely his plan. He grabbed the Lord and began to suck out the chi from him. He told him to let go, otherwise he himself would die. But this ending also suited Lin. He had already absorbed more ki than his body could handle, but I had no intention of stopping. Lin gave his mind completely to the demon to absorb even more. The Lord's body began to gradually dry out, and before the end, a huge energy ball formed. In a moment, it was all over. People gradually began to come to their senses, but suddenly they saw Lin's body. Liangxi ran up and realized that he wasn't breathing. No one understood anything where the ruler had gone, how it all ended, and what had happened to Lin. Suddenly his heart started beating. He told Liangxi to stop wiping her snot on him. Lin was with them again. After this, I could no longer contain my emotions. Everyone thanked Lin and threw him up in their arms. It was then that the ascent of the only altar of holy rank in history began. On that day, He rid the world of the Blood Moon cult and saved the Kaoki Academy, and legends about him live in the hearts of people to this day.